You are the true queen, Rhaenyra. First of her name, protector of the realm. I am meant to serve you, and all of these with me, until death, or the end of our story.
Greetings, and welcome to House of R, a Ringerverse podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network. I'm Mallory Rubin, and it is my absolute pleasure to invite you not only back to King's Landing, but also back into the House of R. Joining me today, reminding me that I alone made virtue my banner. It's Joanna Robinson.
Did you make virtue your banner, Mallory?
Certainly not.
Is that what we would say? Hello, what's up,
Certainly
bad
not.
babies? We're still here. We're still in Westeros, Mallory.
Yeah. We weren't ready to leave quite yet.
One last time.
We're going to do a little season wrap, little season 2 wrap. We are going to hit some season awards. We're going to answer some mailbag questions. And then we're going to do a little book look ahead because we didn't do that in the deep dive. We're going to do it here today. So before we dive into all of that, some quick programming reminders. Over on the Ringerverse, the Midnight Boys. Pew,
Pew, pew.
pew. We'll be back with you next week, as will Mint Edition, for Alien Romulus and Watchmen Chapter 1. That's coming on Monday. Midnight Boys will be back with you next Wednesday. Here on the House of R, we will have one podcast for you next week. We're taking some time off. Hype meter. One pod, barring something unforeseen that forces us to pod more than once. We
No.
will have one pod.
Mallory, no. Vacation. We promised.
It's
1 week.
necessary. Full episodes of House of R. Full episodes of the Midnight Boys available on the Ringerverse YouTube channel.
Ooh.
So hit subscribe on that if you haven't. Joanna, where else can everybody follow along?
Wow, I'm so glad you asked me. First of all, back to the YouTube thing. If you want to watch me wipe the floor with Van Lathan in a Last Jedi debate, you can do that. You can listen to it on podcast form or Ringerverse, but you can watch it on the YouTube channel as well. I didn't quite wipe the floor with me. He had some great points, but I think I did win at the end of the day. But friendship won more than anything else. Also, you can just subscribe to the pod. Why don't you on your pod listening platform of choice? Subscribe to House of R, subscribe to the Ringerverse. If that's not enough, if you want more, guess what? We're all over social media thanks to Joe Mia Dinneron. So you can follow the Ringerverse on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, etc., etc. And then, of course, as always, hobbitsanddragons@gmail.com. We are taking one solitary single week off, and then we will be doing a hard transition, hard pivot.
Yeah.
From dragon time to hobbit time. It's
right.
Rings of Power. I'm so excited. We've gotten so many emails from listeners saying how excited.
Oh my. Oh my goodness.
I hadn't, it's been a minute since I heard
Wow.
the multi-caw.
Jeez. Yeah.
How excited they are for Rings of Power. People are really excited for Rings of Power season 2.
Can't wait.
In general, and also our pod coverage. So
As you might recall, I took it extremely early in the hype draft at the start of the year. I'm really looking forward to it. Where will it fall on the hype meter, the seasonal hype meter next week? Who can say? Tune in to find out. I can't wait though. Spoiler. I can't wait.
I just forget what we drafted as soon as we are
certain
done drafting.
things I feel really proud of, and then certain things haunt me. And not just taking Deadpool, knowing that Sean would on the swing, whereas there was absolutely no prospect of him taking Rings of Power, and I could have just gotten it in the second round, is something I've thought about every single day since we did the draft. Every day. I wake up
I'm
and
just
I think about it. I go to bed and I think about it.
I'm just like a goldfish. I'm like another trip down around the bowl, and I've completely forgotten what we did. Okay, great.
Great stuff. Well, can't wait to be in Middle Earth and excited to be in Westeros today. What a time. What a time for the House of R, Hobbits and Dragons. Great stuff. Joanna.
Yeah, Mallory.
The last programming reminder is the Friendly Neighborhood spoiler warning. It's the same one as always. We will be talking about not just a single episode today, but everything that happened in season 2 of House of the Dragon could come up today. Everything that happened in season 1 could come up today. Anything that's ever happened in House of the Dragon could come up today. Throughout the pod, as always, we will be talking about Fire and Blood, for context, for insights, but anything that's in the future, anything that awaits in the text, we will be discussing separately in our book look ahead section, and you will have a spoiler warning before that section begins. So if you do not want to join us for that, you can still hang around for the season awards and the mini mailbag, and then we will part with you.
And for
2 years from now when we return to Westeros again. I mean, hopefully you listen to other pods.
Who have been feeling like the book section was like a little, brisk on previous pods. This is like our serious, like, we're going to spend some time in that section today. We have a lot to think about and to say about it. So, yeah.
All right, Joe.
Yeah.
We have dishonored ourselves and the crown with our comportment here, but we're going to pod anyway.
Not yet, but give us time.
You have a mailbag question before we begin our season superlatives? Something you want to toss out?
It just made me laugh. Our listener, Kenneth, wrote, and I believe this is the entirety of the email. Ladies, I've now watched Dune 2 twice on an airplane. To quote the monkey from The Lion King, it is time. So Hall of Fame.
Is this about the Hall of Fame? Yeah.
Before the end of the year?
Sure.
Okay.
We can say that on the podcast. We can commit that to the public record. I feel we will have a bounty of perspective hooks around Dune prophecy, and we will consider that
Oscars
as a possibility.
Year?
Yeah, the Oscars next year, the 1 year anniversary of the film next spring. So
abound.
Fall, spring, sometime in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we retire. Certainly.
Before we die. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that could happen at any point. So, like, who knows? I mean,
before
again,
both
I
of
have
us
been
are dead.
incredibly unwell.
If one of us dies, the other is going to do the Hall of Fame in memoriam in honor.
Yes, that could be the eulogy you do at my
live
funeral.
from the gravesite.
I like.
I will be potting. No,
perfect way to say goodbye. Perfect way to say goodbye. Okay.
Grim.
Always nice when people check in on the Hall of Fame. We appreciate it. We look forward to doing it one day. Genuinely, can't wait. Exciting times. So much content. Love story.
Do 2 on a plane.
Yeah. What's your plane movie strategy?
Oh, I choose like the dumb stuff that I feel too good for in the theater is I watch it on a plane. I was just talking to someone. They were talking about a ranking that they gave a film on Letterboxd. They gave like a 4-star ranking to, I can't remember the movie, but some like pretty widely acceptably shitty movie. And I was like, why did you rank it so high? And they were like, oh, I watched it on a plane. I was like, I feel like Letterboxd should have a different color star for I watched this on a plane.
Interesting.
Because your standards are so much lower on a plane. And that's when I like to catch up with the trash. And I have a great time doing so. And I don't feel guilty about it. So plane watches is for the trash. What about you? What do you watch on what do you watch on a plane?
I don't really. I usually
stare into space and think about your errors.
Think about mistakes in prior drafts. Yeah, kind of. Usually I'll like read or listen to podcasts. I will spend a large chunk of each flight trying and failing to fall asleep and thinking about how I can't fall asleep and how unhappy I am that I can't fall asleep. That's usually my routine. And then I have a lot of snacks. As you know, I have a very serious snack strategy for flights. I'm mere days away from taking a flight. So to meet you. Can't wait.
To see me. I'm so excited.
See you. We've been together for a summer and apart for mere days, and we need to be reunited, however briefly. And I have many flights ahead of me over the next week and a half, 2 weeks. So we'll see. Maybe I will watch something. I'll let you know. I'll keep you posted.
Sometimes watching trash on a plane is a good way to put yourself to sleep. Just a thought.
Interesting. Okay. I'll take it under advisement.
I know you fall asleep watching things sometimes. I've heard these stories.
But that's if I'm like super comfortable at home in pajamas.
Oh,
on
not
the couch,
in a public space
under a fleece blanket with Halo curled up, nuzzled into my like hip or elbow nook. Whereas I find planes so uncomfortable that like it's just difficult for me not to think about how every joint aches, and also about all of the germs that are around me. This is a great way to start this podcast. Do you think people like this? Are they riveted right now?
Oh dear.
Oh, Simon. Okay, let's start the podcast.
Oh, Simon. Perfect. Okay. It's you know what? I feel like we're going to be hearing again from Sir Simon Strong in the superlatives today, because it is time to head back into the bowels of the pleasure den for the season 2 superlatives.
Take it off.
You wouldn't dare.
I have dared. And I find it stimulating.
How much daring will there be in today's awards selections? Let's find out. We know the categories, but I do not know what you picked, and you do not know what I picked. So we're going to go rapid fire through some highlights of the season, and we're going to surprise each other. I feel like, as usual, you will be able to guess absolutely all of my picks, and I will be surprising you not once. But we'll find out.
I didn't get too wild and wacky with these, so.
Laris for every category. Maybe like a Simon and an Alice just sprinkled
Best
in
episode
for
Laris.
for variance.
Best set piece Laris.
I mean, you could try it. I think people would accept it. You know, we love a bit here at the House of R. Okay.
Thanks for the support. Yeah.
Hey, anytime, pal. Anytime. Let's get to our first season 2 superlative. It's the Worst I'm Irrational Award. Favorite episode of the season. What do you got?
This is kind of tough, actually.
Yeah, I found a lot of these quite hard.
But I went with just like thinking back to like my elation and my excitement to discuss an episode with you and Chris, et cetera, et cetera. I think I have to go with the Burning Mill, episode 3, the pre-Rook's Rest episode. Part of it had to do with like how high Chris Ryan was on it. Cause like, it's always, you know, this is a communal effort, us watching House of the Dragon. And so like the fact that Chris, who like his enthusiasm for House of the Dragon is never quite as high as ours is as a default. So the fact that he was just like over the moon about episode 3 and like we were at the live show and you hadn't watched it yet and he and I had watched it and we couldn't wait for you to watch it. And he was talking about the writing. This is the episode that David Hancock wrote. And so we were talking a lot about David Hancock's like writing in this episode. We found it to be very like witty, very emotional. This is, and I often like a pre-battle episode. Like, you know, this is what happens right before Rook's Rest, essentially. And so, you know, the way the Burning Mill was handled, the way that, you know, Laris becomes Master of Whispers for Aegon. We meet Ulf in seriousness here. Yeah. And Bela gets to scare the shit out of Kristen Cole with her dragon. I mean, what more could I ask for, really? So, yeah.
Great pick. Christopher Ryan was on my mind with some other categories today. This is not going to be the last time Chris comes up today.
Okay.
As the inspiration behind an award or two.
Chris and his love of a different Chris?
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Perhaps so. I would be dedicating one of today's selections to Chris Ryan.
Christopher J. Ryan.
Great pick. Loved that episode. I am going, perhaps unsurprisingly, with the next episode, episode 4, The Red Dragon and the Gold, which I just fucking loved.
Oh,
and
great.
Rewatching the season, I loved it even more. I thought that everything at Rook's Rest was obviously extraordinary. I will be, spoiler alert, but perhaps unsurprisingly, returning to some of the dragon-centric happenings in that battle and other categories today, so I won't linger on that for long, but everything with Sunfire and Maelys and Vhagar, the reveal for book readers of what Aemond did, Kristen waking to a world on fire, tremendous stuff. Before that, I really, like, as you know, loved the Kristen Duskendale sequence and remain quite haunted by the "you should thank me for it" moment, which was just so disturbing. I thought that Gawain's challenge to Kristen of they will not accept it because it's fucking madness felt like this really key moment and key idea in the season. It's a great, you know, I think obviously among the fandom, mileage varied over the course of the season of when people were ready for Daemon to move out of the Vision era of his arc, but this was like, I mean, this was the height of like, woo, everything that's happening here is fun and interesting and cool. The Rhaenyra throne room vision, and then just the actual meetings, right? We get to meet Oscar Tully in this episode, adult Willem Blackwood, the first real conversation, not the little, the little mini dispatch in the Godswood in the prior episode, but the first real conversation of substance between Alice and Daemon, including our instant favorite, a girl child.
A girl
You
child.
bounced on your knee.
You bounced on your knee.
Sensational stuff. This is the episode with that sensational Alicent Aegon conversation that referenced routinely throughout the rest of the season. Alicent and Laris discussing the histories, that lingering effect on Alicent after her encounter with Rhaenyra and the Sept in the episode you picked. Aemon dunking on Aegon and High Valyrian at the council meeting. Just amazing stuff. And then, of course, like with Jace and Rhaenyra, I wanted a little more Jace in my selections than I ultimately got because I thought it was a great Jace season. But this episode had some good Jace moments. The challenges, the naked challenges to Rhaenyra at the painted table. And then, of course, the moment where Rhaenyra finally shares the Song of Ice and Fire, Aegon's dream, with her son. So that's my pick. My runner-up was episode 7, The Red Sowing. But yeah. Episode 4. That's my favorite at the end of the season.
I think they make a really good pair because a lot of the things you talk about, like Aemon's vengeance on Aegon, is a payoff of what happens in episode 3.
Yes.
Or, Rhaenyra in the throne room is the follow-up from like the first glimpse of Rhaenyra we get in episode 3. And like a lot, or Larys and Alicent is a fallout of Alicent and Rhaenyra in the Sept in episode 3. So it's like, really good, like set them up, knock them down sort of dynamic between those two episodes. So yeah.
Absolutely. That might return as a key bit of inspiration in the next category.
Oh.
Do we have some bookends that might come up here? Some smuggles, perhaps. We'll see. Our next category is the pudding now served? Best scene. What was your favorite scene of the season, Joanna? This was a hard one. This was hard.
I do have a smuggle here, actually. It's my only smuggle. Genuinely.
Actually, same.
I could not pick between Rhaenyra and Daemon and Rhaenyra and Alicent in the finale. Is that same as yours?
I have my smuggle is 2 Rhaenyra Daemon scenes.
Oh, the like big fight and then sure. That's great.
I picked the fight.
Yeah.
But obviously then felt compelled to mention the payoff of the
I think those are great picks. But for me, and it was so funny when I we'll be citing this like presser that Ryan Connell did sort of like a little later in the pod, but like one of my favorite moments in that presser when I was like, there's this great Rhaenyra and Alicent scene, this great Rhaenyra and Daemon scene, sort of like blah blah. He's like, well, they are our 3 main characters, right? I was like, sure, yes, okay.
Did you say, excuse me, Larys is the protagonist of this experience? How dare you?
With Viserys merely a ghost now, these are our 3 main characters, and the way, and I would argue, if I had to pick one as our main character who's on all the posters, I would say it's Rhaenyra. But like, so Rhaenyra and the 2 most important relationships in her life with Daemon, with Alicent in this finale, I just found perfectly acted, really satisfying to have Rhaenyra and Daemon back together again after like such a long separation. Similarly, Rhaenyra and Alicent, we only saw them twice together in the season as a whole. So like there were times in the season when I was impatient for, more of this. And so I'm not saying that I am a fan of, on a whole, about sort of like the way that characters were dispersed, but also our adapters were working with what happened in the books. So, all of that is true. But it did feel like just joyous and like relief to have these characters interact again in the finale. So, yeah.
Great picks. Can't believe it's the only smuggle. What discipline? What restraint? I'm amazed. I love those picks. This was, I think, of all of the categories today, the hardest one for me, just because there were so many like showstopper scenes across the season. But ultimately, I went with the Daemon and Rhaenyra fight, the separation in pathetic, in episode 2, because of the way that feels like this crucial moment at the heart of things coming in all directions, right? It's like so many tributaries of the river are flowing into and out of that. I don't really know how bodies of water work, though I do enjoy looking at them and being near them and find that they bring peace. How many pods in a row will I mention or allude to a body of water? I guess all of them until I'm actually at the ocean.
You know how you like to repeat how much I hated a crevice in Love and Ocean Vista?
Yes.
To the point that like our listeners are a little like, so Dave posted something on Twitter about how he thought I was going to be upset with something in the movie Alien Romulus, which I hadn't seen yet, but he has subsequently told me what it was, and I am upset. But all of the responses from our listeners is like, is it a crevice? Is it a crevice? Is it a crevice? Is it a crevice?
You abhor a crevice. Everyone knows.
And I was talking to my friend Diana about this. She's like, do you mean crevasse? And I was like, genuinely, I don't know the difference between a crevice and a crevasse. I thought it was just pronunciation. Crevasse is just a glacier crevice. And Would I dislike a glacier crevice more than just like a rocky crevice? Probably, because it's cold and slippy. Like harder to get a grip to get out of it.
Could you
And
melt it though more easily with like your body heat? If you
probably
needed
not
to
if
escape?
you're. It depends how big the glacier is. I would say, like how much.
I
How
don't
much
know.
is your poor dying
How desperate
furnace
are you to
of
get
your
out of there?
body competing against a massive glacier? Yeah, maybe
Oh
if
my
global
God,
warming's
I don't
on your
know.
side, you can melt your way out of that glacier. But I don't know. I would say crevasse worse than crevice, probably in general.
We learned something new about you today, and that's a beautiful thing.
I love it.
Great stuff.
What if you took the thing I love, a body of water, and froze it and put it on top of the thing I hate, a crevice? You get a crevasse. So, it's just a cruel
Wow.
twist of fate.
Life is full of these complexities, Jeez. Boy. Speaking of complexities, real scenes from a marriage stuff from Damon and Rhaenyra. This was great. The blood and cheese fallout, really building from that look at the council meeting when Rhaenyra clocks that Damon is for the first time ever quiet. That was just such a great, delicious moment. I loved it. And the way that like Viserys, as we talked about at length at the time, was so present in that argument, even of course in death and absentia, I thought was just brilliant. That do you accept me as your queen and ruler idea that then had such a bearing on both of their arcs the rest of the season. And, the way that they each said things that really you shouldn't be able to forget or take back, but somehow manage to work their way back to each other. Like we talk about this a lot in stories. That can be the true test of a relationship. Can you make it to the other side of an exchange like that? And then, we build toward that like really, really rewarding and emotional payoff in the finale, which we heard at the top of this episode. Fantastic stuff. So I have found myself thinking about that scene a lot since the season ended, and thought it was great. Stuck with me, loved it. A lot of contenders for this category. I ended up like eliminating some picks just because I have them in other categories, but a lot of choices.
You love a divorce story. You love a divorce story.
As a child of divorce, I love a marriage being tested on screen. Okay, time for our next superlative. To war then.
To war then.
It's the season MVP. Will we agree?
No, I doubt it.
Oh, interesting, because you're picking Laris.
No. I decided to, this is the one I think that I decided to think slightly outside the box. I decided to go with the VFX team.
Oh, love
just
this.
because
Great stuff.
we have, but I don't know if we have enough like paid homage to what an incredible job they did with the dragons this season.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about our pal Paula Fairfield, who does the audio, which is huge for determining the personality of these dragons. But like having to design all of these dragons and make them look so distinctive and imbue them with so much personality and so much emotion, which I know is going to come back in sort of like a few of your picks, like is so key because, as we mentioned with Thrones, Drogon was always like a great design, but it was really like Drogon and then Rhaegal and Viserion are also there. Like it wasn't really like we really felt like we understood distinctive personalities or really even like super distinctive styles until one of them became a zombie, like between the other two dragons, right? So just I can't even kind of want to hand how many new dragons we got this season. It's incredible. So I'm going to shout out Pixamondo, Weta FX, Rodeo FX, RVX, Zoic Studios, Red Visual Effects, and supervisor Dottie Inarson and Tom Horton for their work on this season. Takes a village. Takes many VFX houses. Yeah.
It's a great one. Fantastic pick. I love it.
Thanks.
I went in the completely opposite direction. This is like I'm cruising a fastball down the middle with this one because I was a little worried, both because I feel good about this pick and it is something I believe, but also because I was a little bit worried that Rhaenyra might be like underrepresented in my selections. And so Rhaenyra is my MVP of the season. Obviously, it's an astonishing performance from Emma Darcy, just sensational. And, for Rhaenyra, the character, one of the real delightful experiences of this season when we talk about the nature of adaptation is how many surprises were waiting for us in every episode, because as we've talked about many times, like so much of this stretch in the book is like Rhaenyra was, in another room
being sad,
working through it. And so to see all of the ways that Rhaenyra impacted key events and participated in moments that never made their way to the history was just like a really scintillating and stimulating part of watching the show as like fans of the story. And, you know, this gets back to what you were saying actually in your in your pick for best scene. Like, well, these are our main characters. Rhaenyra was present in and a participant in some of the most consequential and awe-inspiring scenes of the season. The Alicent scenes, the Daemon scenes, the Jace scene when Jace makes the like, please don't go the army of bastards, team bastards route. I mean, that is just a sensational scene. And then all of these moments of real heft and impact in relationships that are newer, either to us or to the characters, then like we're invested, right, in Rhaenyra Alicent, Rhaenyra Daemon, but Rhaenyra Mysaria is new to us on screen, and we were really gripped by it. Obviously, Bela has been in Rhaenyra's life for a while, but there were a couple moments between them that really, really stuck with us. A very new relationship, like Adam making his way into Rhaenyra's life, was so interesting to watch in real time. And then you have obviously all of these different emotional notes that Rhaenyra is hitting over the course of the season. And it's one of the reasons that episode 7 was so successful, because when we get to see Rhaenyra in that I cannot gainsay what the gods have laid before me moment, and Rhaenyra putting her hand on Vermithor's snout and the look on Rhaenyra's face, I mean, it's just, it warps its way into your brain in a way that you know is going to be like lasting. So Rhaenyra's my pick.
It's incredible. If anyone has any doubt, I sent this over to someone on Reddit. Acceptable Mix 6364 is the Redditor's name. Broke down character screen time by like hours and minutes and stuff like that. Yeah. And, you know, Rhaenyra, hour 44 minutes, 20 seconds, by far the most screen time. Alicent second most with it, but like with like nearly 40 minutes less. Right. So like Rhaenyra is our queen, our main character for sure. I don't know. I don't think that was up for debate. I just thought it was interesting. And like those three characters, Alicent, Daemon, and Rhaenyra, all clock in over an hour. And then the next underneath that is like Aegon the second and Kristen, who are like 39 minutes, 38 minutes total for the season. So like it's a significant gap between those three main characters. And then
39 like, minutes for Kristen. That's like 7 hours too few for Chris Ryan. I think that's a nice transition into our next award, Joanna.
Yeah.
It is my fault. I think that you have forgotten to fear me. Most improved player.
I think you thought I was going to pick Kristen, or we had like discussed.
I just assumed you thought I would pick Kristen.
I didn't pick Kristen.
I did. Don't worry.
And I didn't pick Mysaria, though those are two like
that's who I thought you would pick.
Those are two that are interesting to think about. I actually am going to give it to Tom Glencarney, and it's not that Tom Glencarney wasn't, as Aegon the Second, wasn't good in season 1. He just didn't have like a ton of opportunity. Like there were very few scenes actually with Tom Glencarney as Aegon in season 1, and also we were dealing with really rough storylines for him in season 1 and stuff like that. And so Tom Glencarney, and we knew this as book readers watching him, knew that he only had a few episodes, 4 episodes before he was going to be like very badly burnt for the rest of his time on the show. And so he was just eating it up, eating up every inch of screen time. Also, the writers knew that they had to do a lot of work on Aegon this season. Now, has he healed a little quicker than we maybe thought he would? Yes, I mean, but he's still rest in peace, the dragon cock. But even his like moaning, groaning, burnt acting was like incredibly good and effective. Yeah. So I just think that Tom Glencarney really came from someone that I wasn't paying that much attention to someone where I was like, this is one of the best performances of the season, incredibly charismatic, incredibly captivating, and now engendering a lot of empathy in me for a character that I was like pretty hardened against. So,
great pick.
I think Tom deserves his flowers for that.
I love this pick. I would say that Aegon was like maybe my runner-up for MVP of the season.
Right.
Every Aegon scene was interesting.
So good.
But I love going with Tom and Aegon in most improved player here. This is where I will be honoring Chris Ryan by selecting another Kristen Cole. I just can't. I mean, we talked about this a lot at the end of the season on Talk of the Thrones and in the deep dives. Like, I really kind of on the one hand can't believe, but on the other hand can, because it feels so true to a Thronesian tradition, how riveted I was by Kristen's scenes by the end of the season. And with, again, multiple scene partners. Like, you know, if we think about the early season where we go from watching Kristen and Aemond plotting, or the small council, or the great Kristen Aegon auto scene when Kristen is named Hand and lets it, like, amidst that little, like, and then of course, like, an incredible Kristen. I wasn't going to bring up the haircut because we do have a wig watch category coming, and I wanted to leave that to you. But an incredible Kristen Alicent season and an incredible Kristen Gawain season. With Alicent, like, it feels, part of the way that I can feel the passage of time of the season is when I think back to their sex scenes. Like, that actually really feels like a long time ago now. But what a time it was. The sword cleaning. The many courtyard interactions building toward the post-Rook's Rest. Their armor melted. There were men walking that were on fire. We have given the war to the dragons moment. That was one of my favorite scenes of the season. And the Kristen Gawain fireside chat in the finale was sensational and made me so eager to spend more time with that duo and to see where Kristen's arc goes from here and what surprises might await. I just am genuinely, this doesn't mean I'm rooting for Kristen necessarily or like love him, but I am invested in his story. And that is not necessarily how I felt about Kristen Cole at the end of season 1. And so that 100%. Feels like a notable achievement to me.
I completely agree. He definitely deserves to be here. I think also, just thinking about the writing for the season, like, you know, we have our notes here and there about things they didn't get quite right, but the idea to take Gawain Hightower, a very minor character in the book who has something to do in King's Landing, and making him Kristen Cole's main sea partner for, you know, much of the season. That being said, and to go back to the runtime thing, you and I were like astonished to find out that Gawain Hightower had fewer than 10 minutes of screen time total this season. What a great job Freddie Fox did, sort of imprinting on us.
Stay tuned for my next pick. Spoiler.
Okay, sorry. I don't mean to keep stepping on your picks, but
Freddie always makes every second count. It's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, just like that was such smart writing to be like, okay, we have to send Kristen Cole off on campaign. We could have him staring moodily into the middle distance if we want to, or we could give someone for him to talk to, and that's Gawain Hightower. Great choice. Great stuff.
I love it. All right. Speaking of Gawain, I assume you knew I was going to pick him for the next category, though there are multiple contenders that I think you might pick, so I'm excited to see who you actually went with here. Oh, you make an art of provoking me. Who are you going with for most impactful new character?
I think they did a great job with a bunch of new characters this season, and like, but I was stuck on your wording. Like, I know you're not going to hold me to any wording necessarily, but you said impactful, not like favorite. And so because it's impactful, I went with Alice Rivers. If you said favorite, it might be like Simon Strong and Ulf, like duking it out for that
those
title.
Were the three that I assumed were your finalists here. Yeah.
But Alice, in terms of impact on the story, not just the like dream therapy or the prophecy vision that we get in the finale, stuff like that, but just like the introduction of witchcraft and magic and old godliness into the storyline. I think she's so key for opening up an entire realm of possibility in terms of what they could do with the supernatural on the show. So for impact,
yes,
Alice Rivers. For inspiring me to offend all of Scotland with my impression of Gail Rankin's beautiful accent, Alice Rivers. So yeah.
Oh man. I assumed this would be like a source of torment for you, whether to pick Alice or Ulf or Simon. But Alice is a great pick.
I don't know that you can make the impactful argument for Simon. You could definitely for Ulf. But
well,
yeah.
impact comes in many forms. Impact can be on the plot, in the story.
Delightful.
Impact can be
Joy
on our
of my
hearts.
heart.
And so I will be selecting, with that in mind, the character I genuinely enjoyed spending time with the most this season, Gawain Hightower.
Yeah.
Brought to life in unsurprisingly riveting fashion by one of the icons of our time, Freddie Fox. We were guessing, without actually knowing, on the finale deep dive, like how many minutes do we think Gawain had? And I think I said 17 and you said it was probably like around like 10. And to hear that it was less than 10 actually then made me feel more emboldened, weirdly, perhaps counterintuitively, to pick him, because I'm like,
no, I agree.
Every second left a mark. Every second left an impression. And some of that was on the plot and like us understanding where we were heading or should we be heading there. Like they'll just question and even like a little moment, Harrenhal is to the west. Like with a half a sentence, he was able to set something up for another character quite effectively. The humor, unsurprisingly, right? Wonderful comic performer. But the heart, this was the like, holy shit, I can't believe we got this, and how just really like cherishing how poignant it was. I mean, the Gawain Allison courtyard scene was in the consideration set for me for favorite scene of the season. I just thought it was incredible. And we got that emotion and that glimpse into a character's backstory who we don't know. We had spent no time with Gawain, and that like, you get on with it, don't you, when there isn't any choice. It just so effectively told us so much about his history and his life and his relationship to his family and the realm. And then that gift that he gave Alicent of the he's kind and the I'm sure you did your best. I just thought that scene was exceptional, and I can't wait to be back with Gawain. I'm picking, Chris is going to be like, I fucking incepted you and I got you. I have a lot of like Team Green picks, even though I remain, and I will just state it once more for the record, Team Black. But I did go Team Green for like a lot of my picks because those scenes were great. They're entertaining.
Chris isn't wrong that Team Green is the most, I think when Chris is like pro Team Green, he's like pro entertaining television. And it's hard to argue with that. It's not really
about the Team Green
it's
platform.
It's not about morality at all, I think, for Chris. Chris is happy to watch like shitty characters doing shitty things. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. I just rewatched all of Slow Horses because Rob and I are going to be covering season 4 on the Prestige. Yeah,
best show on TV?
Not the best show on TV, but
it's my favorite show on TV.
It is not your favorite show.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
You like it more than House of the Dragon.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That doesn't mean it's like more important in my life.
Okay. Well, you know what?
It's my favorite show.
I would like to go back in time and not argue with you because it's a wonderful show and it's a wonderful pick for your favorite show on television. It's a tremendous show, and Freddie Fox, such an absolute smash. Also has less screen time in that show than I had remembered. You know what I mean?
But
shows up for like, I don't know, 5 scenes total every season and just like crushes every single one of them. So
the great example to me is King Hugo in The Great. Because he has so few scenes, but they're like, you're like, should this character have a spinoff and an entire cinematic universe?
The Great, a wonderful show also that people should watch.
Fantastic stuff. Okay, next category. Maylies must gorge and rest, as must I. Like to do things together. I like to watch people doing things together. And so it is time for favorite, duo, or grouping. Which set of characters did you like watching together?
You and I might have the same one for this. I'm not sure. I think it has to go to Laris and Aegon. At the end of the day. Yeah.
I think it
Do you want to say why?
Their scenes were magic.
Yeah. Really good.
Obviously we got more moments than just the 2 primary ones that we'll talk about here, from the way that Laris, like after Aegon sat the throne in the premiere, started to work him and plant the hand, he was your father's hand seeds, or like watching them in physical therapy together in the penultimate episode, etc. But I think this is the reason that we were making this pick. Data points are the 6th episode and the finale, because the wear it like armor scene, right? And they will underestimate you and this will be your advantage, that would have been my pick for my favorite scene of the season if I didn't know I was going to pick Laris and Aegon and talk about it here. And then, I think that finale scene, which just we talked about for so long in our finale breakdown, was incredible. It was just absolutely incredible. And all of the emotion and insecurity and ambition that is at play for both of the characters seamlessly in an exchange like that. And the performances are exceptional. So yeah, this was actually like, I think this might have been my easiest pick of the whole set. It was like, I'm starting here, Laris and Aegon.
And Orwell, who was also there. And also in Slow Horses, as you know, because I sent you a screenshot. Orwell pops up in Slow Horses season 1. But like, I just I think that it's funny when we were talking about this on Talk of Thrones, and Chris is like, so do you think Laris is like playing him, or do you think he's like being genuine? And you and I both said like both, right. And then Chris is like, oh, so you fell for it. I'm like, I genuinely think that while, yes, Laris is playing the shit out of Aegon at every single opportunity, he is also, Matthew Needham, at least as an actor, has chosen to also have Laris be authentic in plenty of the things that he's describing, which makes him so much more interesting to me with Love and Respect than a Littlefinger. Because, we got Baelish talking about Catelyn and, the things that he wanted and the things that he didn't have, but not, Aidan Gillen's a great performer, but not in like this vulnerable of a way. And so I like this nuance to our schemer character a lot. And I hope we get even more of it going forward. So,
yeah. And this also felt like a real evolution for the character between seasons. So, loved that. Okay. I knew we would have the same pick, and we did. Great stuff. Next, I did not think they would be so eager to die. Best set piece.
This was so easy for me.
Yeah.
I genuinely think there's, based on my understanding of your definition of set piece, I think there's only 2 possible answers. The Red Sewing and Rook's Rest. And I got to give it to Rook's Rest. The Red Sewing's incredible, but Rook's Rest, I think the Red Sewing's incredible for its adaptive choices. Rook's Rest, even though we have the adaptive choice of like making Aemon's attack overtly, deliberately against Aegon and all this sort of stuff, that added wrinkle. Yeah. It's also just like such a highly anticipated moment, and leading up to it. And, I said this on the finale pod, I've said it before, Blood and Cheese and the Cargo Bowl as like adaptations of like anticipated moments. I was just sort of like, okay, this is fine. This is pretty good, whatever. This just really delivered on something they really needed to deliver on, this like promise of dragon battles, which is just going to be, we're in a Targaryen civil war. It's just going to be a lot of what's going forward. So this is proof of concept. Can they do this in a way that makes the action, we'd seen Vhagar versus poor Arax, but like, the action is legible, the ability to capture the emotion of the actors on the back of the dragon, to be able to capture the emotions of the dragons themselves, the connection between Rhaenys and Maelys as they both go to their deaths is just like close up there with like some of the most emotional stuff that we get this season. And I just thought it looked incredible, felt incredible, and I was just like so pleased that they really knocked it out of the park with this, which I think they really had to make us feel like the rest of this show is just going to be like that kind of exhilarating and emotionally rewarding. So Rook's Rest, maybe.
Great pick. Great pick. I'm going the other way. I'm going Red Sewing.
Great.
I think in part because I have Rook's Rest as my favorite episode, and we'll be returning to that battle in another category. But also because as much as I was looking forward to Rook's Rest and as monumental of a like pivot point in the story as that is, I can't lie. Like, I was looking forward to the sowing of the seeds more than anything else this season.
Okay, yeah.
So I really, it differs on screen from how it all unfolds in the text, like the sea smoke, the pairing moving up, etc. But all in a way that worked for me. And I just, like, when I think back to this season, when I think back to season 1 now, there are certain moments, certainly certain lines that I like quoting, but certain visuals that just I instantly associate with the season. And for me, one of those moments for this season, for season 2, is Vermithor emerging from the shadow behind Rhaenyra.
Incredible.
It's just instantly iconic.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I do think Rook's Rest like had a couple of those too. Also, that applies to both of them. They did a great job with both of these. Yeah.
Vhagar's wings just like emerging above the tree line there.
Yes, definitely.
So good.
But like, I just thought, in addition to being visually splendid, and in addition to the action being effectively heart pounding in the Red Sewing, I thought that this was a great character moment for Rhaenyra and what it showed us about what Rhaenyra was willing to do. And I also thought it was, and here, this is going to be such an on-brand thing to say, great character moment for the dragons. Mm-hmm. And like in a way that I think is important. You know, we felt what was distinct about Vermithor and Silverwing in that stretch. And then if we expand the sewing beyond just the actual end of episode 7, the actual Red Sewing set piece, and include like Seasmoke seeking out Adam, and many other moments across the season, we could really feel
good old Sheepy in the finale having a snack.
You know, we could really feel the personalities of the dragons this season in a way that feels like so not only like an achievement, but such an important sacred thing inside of this world. So that's just something I'm grateful for and really happy we got. That's my pick.
Great picks. Both of our picks.
I feel like we're going to have the same one for the next category, but let's find out. See to those pigs. Most impactful location. I assume we both picked Sharp Point.
Is the Realm's Delight, the real Realm's Delight, Sharp Point? Our favorite vacation destination, Sharp Point?
Oh, man.
I feel like your category name is a spoiler. I mean, it's Harrenhal. It has to be Harrenhal. How is it not Harrenhal?
Yeah. My runner-up, just to throw something else in the mix, is the Dragonstone Library, because I thought that was a stunning set. But yeah, I mean, it has to be.
What
Harrenhal.
about the gantry at Dragonstone?
As you know, I love and have always loved a gantry, and I have always known what that is.
I know. It's your lifelong passion, your love of gantries.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's got to be Harrenhal.
Harrenhal. Easy.
What did you end up loving most about Harrenhal as a location? Was it the Godswood? Was it the God's Eye? Was it the fucking incredible? Do we talk enough about that dining room table? I'm not sure we do.
I just think like the way in which every Jim Clay, like shout out Jim Clay, like the way in which every location obviously like feels like a complete place, not just like a series of disconnected rooms, because they basically like built complete like labyrinths and rabbits warrens that are these sets. I don't know, like just goat stuff, bag guano, rain dripping in, like just the overall haunted vibe of it all. I thought it was a wonderful payout. I mean, we've been to Harrenhal before in Game of Thrones, but we weren't using Harrenhal the way we were using it here, which was as like a gothic haunted mansion location. And I just think they absolutely crushed it with that prompt.
We are aligned. Wonderful. Next, I can have to make a more most memorable quote. And yes, you can just pick the category name.
I can has more. Okay, I could have gone profound here. Mm-hmm. Did you go profound? Because I didn't.
I did. I was really tempted to go with some humorous lines. Like, I honestly really wanted to pick, I thought the dragons was gods, or like, I did not think they would be so eager to die. But I did. I went with
gods.
I mostly just wanted to hear you say it again, honestly. But no, ultimately I did not go with those. I went with something else. What about you? Did you go with like
I went with something kind of silly,
singer?
but I went with something kind of silly, but like I just think about it all the time.
Tell me.
It's when David says, you know, whatever. He says, like, what do you call the queen's husband? And Sir Simon says, king. Consort.
Great one.
King Consort. Just like an all-time wonderful Simon Russell Beale delivery of a wonderful moment. So, yeah.
Did you consider picking the moment when Simon just shushes Daemon like he's a little baby?
Or just Simon clapping in the background. Yeah, King Ellipses Consort is my choice here. Oh, and Simon,
fantastic
you're
pick.
a legend. I'm so delighted that viewers at home seem to love Simon as much as like I was hoping they would, based on the fact that they cast Simon Russell Beale. So yeah.
Let me
Great
tell you
stuff.
something. I also have a Sir Simon Strong line for you. Yeah, I do. The thing I thought most about is like a unifying theme of the season came from Simon. Oh, well, the answer to that is lost in time. Sin begets sin begets sin. And it was just so subtly and beautifully delivered. But I thought about it almost every scene and certainly every episode after that. And it informs now when I go back to the beginning of the story how I'll think about that as well. So that's the line that ultimately stuck with me the most. But again, this was a hard category because there were a lot of great lines this season. This is not the last time I'll be picking Simon in a category.
I might be tempted in future if I get something wrong about lore or a quote and you get it right, which is often the case. I'll just pull a David and be like, oh well, who can remember? Bracken Blackwood, who can remember?
Oh man, Damon.
All right, is Simon the winner of your next category?
No, but
okay.
Damon is. There were works of barbarity. Top sex thing. And, we had a little journey in our Google Doc last night. Like, what did we call we had a sex category in our rapid fire awards in season 1 and looked back at the old docs, and it was called the Doctrine of Exceptionally Weird Sex Stuff, which, is great. And I miss doing this Handy Office Award every week. So here we are. We have a whole season to consider, but kind of like a sex light season. So actually not that much to
know.
Consider,
We'll talk about this in the book Lookahead section. What are the opportunities for horniness in the future? There's about to be a lot of fighting and a lot of, mortal peril. So will that result in more sex, less sex? We'll find out. Okay, top sex thing. For me, I'm going to give it to Corlys and Rhaenys.
Great. This is my runner-up. Perfect. I was hoping you would pick this.
In bed together. When Rhaenys is talking about David and Rhaenyra, and she says, neither can he allow her to command him. And Corlys says, I have on occasion found that to be quite enjoyable. And the mind reels to all sorts of possibilities.
Boy, does it.
And we just, this is leading up to Rook's Rest. And those of us who are book readers were like, tick, 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 the clock is counting down on Rhaenys. That's another really strong thing they did this season in terms of like giving us a lot of great Rhaenys content before we lost her in episode 4. I think they did a tremendous job leading up to all of that.
Great.
So, yeah.
Great pick. I do regret to inform you that I will be selecting Damon dreaming that he's fucking his own mom. I'm sorry, but when I think back on the season and I think about sex stuff, this one left an impression. It's tough to top.
They
went for
phrasing. Sure.
We saw Daemon Targaryen dream that he was eating out his own mom and wrapping his arms around her as she said that he was made to wear the crown, and then said, as he swiped a bloodied hand across her throat, my favorite son. That was a real journey that we went on together watching this television show. Just an incredible time.
The number of texts we got from Chris Ryan that were like, wait, was that his mom?
This was that was genuinely one of my favorite memories of the season, was texting with you and Chris after we watched this. And like, we had a lot to process.
Wait, no, but seriously, guys, that is mom.
Chris,
okay.
It was. It was. Boy. Okay. Bit of a tonal shift here between categories. It does not befit a prince to pout. Most emotional moment.
I'm going to give it to the pouting prince himself. Jacaerys Velaryon, for when he comes back from the wall and he's trying to deliver his report to Rhaenyra like a big boy would, but he's so sad because Luke is dead and he's trying to keep it together and he's tearing up, and Rhaenyra comes and gives him a hug. In that episode, which, as you all recall, Rhaenyra has no lines, but is in a lot of scenes just being incredible. Jace trying to be a grown-up but crying for his brother at the same time. and I don't think it ever like, other than perhaps what you're about to talk about, which I think is my guess, and I think is like another really good moment. I don't know that there are many moments this season, as I was thinking about this, that like brought me to tears. Do you know? Like it wasn't. There's a very upsetting death. We're going to talk about that. There's some like shocking things that happen, some very funny things that happen, but I wasn't like overwhelmed with emotion. But I was here. This one really got me. So yeah.
Is the other thing on your list that you're hoping I pick the Cargill Bowl?
Yeah. Tremendously emotional moment for me.
I will, in fact, be picking a scene that involves two people with a lifelong bond who somehow made their way into the same room with each other, but I will not be picking the Cargill Bowl. I am picking for my most emotional moment. I think the thing you thought I was going to pick is coming in the next category for me.
Yeah. Okay.
So my most emotional moment, I was in tears watching Rhaenyra and Alicent in the finale. And like that entire scene is, I think, very moving and very raw and very intense and heavy. But particularly, this is my pick within the pick. You speak as if from a distant dream. Come with me. That just like broke me. It was devastating. And then it was like we had a very emotional moment talking about it on the pod, and you said so many beautiful things
together. Yeah.
So this is my pick. I just found this so moving, and I think I'll be thinking about this for a long time.
Great pick. All right.
Next, it must be the dragon, or perhaps the witch. We'll find out. Who speaks most magical fantasy element?
I have 3 words. Do you want to guess
stuff
what they are?
go?
It's just which stuff go.
Which stuff go?
Which stuff go? In my witch era, having the best year of the witches that I could possibly have, and which stuff go? So good.
I'll be going the dragon route here, and this is where I am picking what I think maybe you thought I would be picking in the prior category, most emotional moment. This is definitely this genuinely was the most emotional moment of the season for me without question. But I knew I wanted to pick it here because it represents this larger core idea of like how to center the fantasy elements in this story about war and politics and the family dynamic and everything else. It's Meleys looking back at Rhaenys in her final moment, which shattered me, Joanna, into a million pieces, a million little dragon scales. And before that, too, the moments entwined with each other, like we're cutting between Rhaenys preparing to mount Meleys in the Dragonmont, and like the way that she puts her hands on her and Meleys looks back over her shoulder, like we get that over the shoulder look in that moment, that link and bond between them. And then when Sunfire comes out in the dragon pit and like headbutts Aegon, gives him that sweet little nuzzle.
Egg and Sunny. Your favorite?
My sweet Sunny. My sweet Sunny. I thought that the moments where we felt so keenly, and all of the lines in the text, which I love and cherish and love returning to and thinking about and quoting, where the idea that we cannot understand the mind of a dragon or cannot understand the bond, the nature of the bond, the particular lore and mythology and actual explanation of or driving forces behind the bond. In those moments, you understood everything you needed to about what is at the heart of that relationship. And I thought it was beautiful. I loved it. Loved it. Oh, sad. Okay, next. You have no choice but to submit the most scintillating use of score. Do you have a favorite musical moment from this season, Joanna?
This was the easiest one, I thought, by far. Which was, because I said this before, I do think there are moments, the like, I'm going to try to do an impression of it again and get it better this time. The
it was pretty good.
That stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. I don't think Ramin Djawadi has quite matched the highs, not even actually gotten like quite close to the highs of the Game of Thrones score with the House of the Dragon score. So in the finale, when we get All Must Choose and we're sampling Game of Thrones scores in here, and we've got Reigns of Castamere in here, and we've got the Stark theme in here and all that sort of stuff like that. That really got me.
That's my pick as well.
Hyped. I think it's easy. I mean, like, what are the runners up? The runners up are like the hearing the Stark theme in the opening episode, perhaps,
Yes. Or the beginning of episode 2. Those are the other contenders.
Exactly.
Yeah. I did weirdly, really. I was really struck by the score in Allison's trip to bigger bathtub. Something about that really. Are we going with bigger bathtub or pond, as Chris requested? Where do we land?
Bigger bathtub is funny every time.
Oh man,
because anytime we say big
so
bathtub,
sad.
it makes me think of like the bathtub lobby. You know, like the whole the conspiracy of the bathtub manufacturers. Oh no, have you been influenced again by big bathtub?
Perhaps I have. I do love a bathtub.
Oh my god,
I love a bath. Love to listen to the watch in the bath.
I know you do.
That's me time. All right, we have 2 awards left. Fit Watch. Who's your drip lord of the season?
I will confess to you right now that I completely missed this in the notes for some reason, but the answer is so easy. It's laughable. It's Simon Strong,
of
obviously.
Course, this is, when I said Simon was coming back for another pick, this is it.
I was like, where? I forgot that we were doing this.
These like lush
purple
plum velvets
Yeah.
threaded with gold and more layers and drapes than like leaves on the cabbages that his cooks are preparing. Resplendent.
Oh yeah,
Truly no notes.
Why is Harrenhal in a crumbling disarray? Because Simon has to get his fit on. So here we go.
Man,
why are the coffers empty?
Relatable content. Great stuff. Speaking of visual splendor, I'd like to take us now to our final award. And it is, of course, I mean, what else could it be? Wig Watch. TM. With Joanna Robinson. TM.
Do you wear wigs?
Usually this is like a corner where I critique things. And I do. Here's my main critique of the season. This is the wig that I would like to see improved in season 3. And it is Alice Rivers, who I like. I love the length and like how it hangs down to her waist and the curly ends. But her hairline, the edges there, it's hard because Gail Rankin has like a low natural hairline. So I think it's hard to lay a wig on her. And I know that like, I don't know the timing of it. If her like bleached hair that she has right now for Cabaret was like at all a factor, I don't know. But like, I would like to see something a little bit better on the hairline for her next season, but the length and all the rest of the witchiness of it, top tier, great. And then I would just say overall, I think the blonde Targaryen wigs were so much better this season. I think Ray Nice didn't have that like weird beehive wig this season. I think the grief wigs we got for like Rhaenyra in episode 1 or Daemon as he can like continues to lose his marbles and Harrenhal, like I thought all of that stuff worked really well. Aemon's, sleek flat iron Legolas versus Aegon's like I woke up like this. All of that. I thought the Targaryen wigs were really good this season, but witch stuff deserves slightly better wig in season 3. So that is my wish.
I love it. Grief wig is just a great turn of phrase. Remarkable stuff from you as always in Wig Watch.
Grief wig is almost as important to me as depression beard, which is like a true passion of mine.
Of course. Yeah. I am not a wig scholar, and so I usually have nothing to contribute in Wig Watch, but I just want to take a moment to say, like, I'm really glad, we mentioned this at the beginning of the season, and in our 900 trailer breakdowns, glad we left the Jace wig behind and went with the natural curls. Fantastic choice.
I saw an interview with the hair and makeup person. And I guess it was like last minute. The wig that they fitted Harry Collette with in season 1 was like a last minute. I forget what happened. He cut his hair. I don't know. But it was like no one was happy with that. Like no one was like, yeah, we really crushed it with that mullet in season 1. And so the hair person asked Harry Collette to grow out his hair as long as he could. And he got like, it was much longer than it wound up being in the show. Like if you follow him on Instagram, like he got it like quite long.
Right.
And so she trimmed it up and she's like, took it to the writer. She's like, I think we should go with this. And they, like us, were like, surely you cannot grow that much hair in such a short passage of time. And she was like, come on. It looks so good though. And they were like, it does.
We'll ask a question once and then we'll all move on.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Looks great.
Great stuff. Okay. Those were the season superlatives. Nice trip down memory lane. Already feels like a long time ago. It's been a week and a half. Wonderful to return to Westeros. We're not done yet. We've got a few we're gonna do a little mini mailbag here before we get to the book look ahead. I said more of those little bird caws.
Duty is sacrifice. It eclipses all things, even blood. All men of honor must pay its price.
Okay, now it's time for us to perform our duty, and that is, of course, by answering some mailbag questions.
Before we get into the mailbag, I would love our listeners, just in case they haven't heard it. I don't know. I can't remember if you've been doing it on the Midnight Boys. Steve does an incredible Craig Stark impression. It's so much better than mine. Steve, will you hit us with that?
Starks never forget their oaths.
Beautiful. Loved it. Thank you, Steven.
Oh,
Steve
man.
is an uncanny impressionist. Like, we get these
He has a
voice
gift
memos
for
on
it.
our phones,
Yeah.
and like all of us will be in there like doing our own like funny little impressions, and Steve's like, here's a RADA level masterclass and a regional accent, and we're all like, pack it up, let's go home. Okay.
Oh, man.
That's far too
Good
kind.
stuff.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome, Steve. You're the best. Okay, mailbag. Do you want me to read these questions?
Sure.
Tremaine asks, love the show. All I want to know is, what are the Hot D GOT spinoffs that no one but House of R is asking for?
Okay. Great
And we should
question.
say these are spoiler-free questions.
Yeah,
then we have
yeah,
some
yeah.
mailbags sort of sprinkled into our
Yes.
book
Yes,
look
yes.
ahead question. So this is still like safe
Safe
in
space.
terms of like book stuff.
Yeah. We're really just here to talk about the Orioles, as you'll discover in a few minutes.
Mallory, you want to go?
I am going to redefine the parameters of the question slightly and make it Talk the Thrones instead of House of R. And then I will be selecting the daily Kristen and Gawain travelogue spinoff.
Wow, Chris is
I want
really
these as
getting
episodes.
a lot
do.
of love on this.
I don't think we got enough time with them at the end, and I am yearning. This is like the yearning tendrils for me. I want to check in with them every day. I want like a 2.5 minute webisode every day to like know what they're up to between seasons. So that's my pick.
Did you ever watch that that wine show where like it was Matthew Reese
Matthews?
and and Matthew
I
Good,
didn't.
right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
didn't, but I wanted to.
But
As
like
enthusiasts of
just watching them
and
travel
wine.
around. I think it was just called The Wine Show. Traveling around drinking wine for Gwen and
Goals.
Kristen, right?
Yeah,
Like that's
I mean,
what we want for them.
sounds fantastic. Or like
The
they
Wine Show
could
with Gwen and
it
Kristen.
was this would
Arbor
be very of a
Gold.
piece with what you just said.
Yeah.
We know that Gawain is an enthusiast of inns.
Oh, inns. Checking
Why
out the
not?
inns.
Yeah.
And there was
Go-
only one
go
bed.
about the
And what were they
land.
going to do? Yeah. Okay.
Do you have a pick?
Easily.
Tell
I
me.
really think I think you can convince the people to tune in for your show. I do think this is
Truly
maybe
just
only
for you.
House of R wants this, which
Okay.
is Witch Stuff Go, starring Alice
Mhm.
Rivers and Simon Strong. Based on the way that the listenership was
Mhm.
like, I feel like there was too much witch stuff. I say, give me more witch stuff.
As you know, I would enthusiastically co-sign this pilot, and I would be there throughout the development process, and then I would consume it gladly. You know, when we did our live show, is that where we got COVID and took us
Who's to
weeks
say?
to recover? Who could say? We pitched some spin-offs to each other that we thought the other person might like, and one of the ones that I pitched to you that didn't win, another pitch that involved it was Bachelor in Paradise. Brendock was what won ultimately.
So
I just
good.
don't think that would be good.
So good.
But one of the pitches I had was Kitchen Confidential Harrenhal, and
Yeah.
I still think that would be great, and I would really like that.
Or
It would be
ghost
fun.
therapy with Alice Rivers. Everyone goes to ghost therapy, and like
Oh,
we get to
I
cure
love that.
everyone in Westeros.
Yes. That's a great one.
This is
And you meet a new person every episode.
If it's Witch Stuff
Fantastic.
Go with Alice Rivers and Simon Strong, it's she's a barn owl, cursed to live in human form. He's a drip
Oh,
lord
man.
who just can't keep his house together.
I would watch. I would set the season pass. I would
This
watch.
summer
Absolutely.
on Witch Stuff Go.
How many episodes you thinking?
Okay, we're gonna do 3 5-episode seasons.
3 5-episode seasons. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Leave
In
the
and out.
people wanting more. And
Yeah,
by the people we mean
BBC
us.
style. Okay.
I was gonna pitch Homeward Bound Cheese's dog, But then I realized everyone would want that. Actually, everyone would want that. Like,
where's he trying to get home to, though?
I don't know. That's what we would find out. Okay. Somewhere, I hope, because it pains me. It fills me with sorrow to think of that poor pup still sitting there, like looking for someone to love and someone to love him. It just breaks my fucking heart.
You know, he really should have gone in the cart with Aegon and Larys. Don't you think Aegon and Larys
Maybe he did
need a little dog?
Yeah.
Don't you think Aegon needs a little like therapy dog?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Great selections. I look forward to watching all of them. I was waiting for you to pitch Law and Order: The Disappearance of Talia, but you didn't. So sad.
I don't think even House of R is clamoring for that. Okay. Maybe Miguel Sapochnik can get that off the ground. Okay. Chase says, before the Hot D finale, viewers were treated to a preview of the Dunk and Egg series, Night of the Seven Kingdoms. My question is simple. How do you think a series set 100 years after House of the Dragon can exist without spoiling the plot resolution of the earlier series? Are they simply going to avoid mentioning the end of the Dance of Dragons, even though one of the main characters is a direct descendant of the Targaryen dynasty? I mean, we should say there's Targaryens all over the joint.
Oh yeah,
in Dunk and Egg and Night of the Seven Kingdoms, that show.
Yes.
Here's a spoiler for Fire and Blood and Dance of the Dragons that I'm wildly comfortable telling you guys. Targaryens win. They're Targaryens on the throne when all of this is done. And you know that because all the way up to the Mad King Aerys, we have Targaryens on the throne. Now, if you want real spoilers for the Dance of Dragons, you're going to have to watch Game of Thrones because it is in there. Joffrey very helpfully spoils all of Dance of Dragons on Game of Thrones.
Avoid those scenes if you don't want to know.
Shireen talks about it. It's not great. Okay. So like that's in Game of Thrones. I don't think it'll actually be that hard because there's actually a different Targaryen conflict that is the main thing that in the more recent past that Dunk and Egg is more ensnarled in. So they have plenty to talk about in terms of like Targaryen civil wars. There's a more recent one. So I don't think that they need to even worry about talking about Dance of Dragons. What do you think?
I'm not concerned about this. I think while, as you noted, there are a ton of Targaryen figures in the story right from the jump. And, you know, the state of the Targaryen dynasty is, of course, a part of the interest of the story. It's not like a show that is set, at least initially and predominantly, the novellas that we have so far, in the halls of power in that way. It's just a different kind of story. Yeah. You know, we're much more like adventure, swords and shields, coming of age tale out in the world.
On the road. Yeah.
And so I think it's easily avoidable. As you noted, thinking more broadly about, like, I've shared my concerns about this many times on many prior pods, just the overall emphasis and centrality of the Targaryens in the spinoffs and what we know is coming still. And like, we're going to get Aegon's Conquest. And I think a Blackfire Rebellion story is inevitable if these shows keep doing well. Like, at some point, this will become a larger concern. Like, how are these stories stepping on each other or spoiling each other? But I think Dunk and Egg and House of the Dragon can coexist pretty comfortably. Yeah. I'm not really, it's a good question, but I'm not really worried about it. I don't think the viewership needs to be. And I think there also is that larger question that we talked about in the finale of like, again, we're not worried. We think this will be navigable, but how concerned is the House of the Dragon showrunning team with spoiling its own story anyway? I think that's increasingly a question that we have.
Yeah.
So
they don't seem that worried, I guess. Okay. Kyle, this is a comment more than anything else. We were like, why aren't Jason Bella having sex? Bella having sex? If I were a teen and war was imminent, I certainly would. Kyle wrote, Jace, a bastard, would wait for marriage because, like John, he's all torn up about bastardy and would want to father one with Bela until they're married. I think that's a decent point that I don't think that I had like really, you know, put him in the Jon Snow camp of like, I don't want to father a bastard. That being said, why aren't Bela and Jace married? I mean, this goes to our next question from Liz, who says, this whole war started because of disputed succession. Why isn't anyone freaking out about the lines of succession for the current queen and king? Feels like Jace and Bela should be married already and trying to have kids. And feels like somebody should be more worried that Aegon has no male heir and cannot make another. right? Or am I overlooking a show universe blonde baby? Shouldn't Aemond, as the current heir, be trying to shore up his line? I think this is a really solid point from Liz. What do you think, Mallory Rubin?
Yeah, so on the Jace front, I do think it's an interesting note from Kyle and actually the kind of like connection across slices of the universe and characters that I typically really enjoy.
Yeah.
I don't know that, and I think it's valid and reasonable to assume that Jace would feel that way. I don't know that we should assume that like every bastard feels this way though. I think that Jace's preoccupation with being a bastard makes it a reasonable question to ask.
Oh, completely.
But
yeah, I agree. I don't think every bastard feels that way, but Jace, as you say, this is his maybe even more overtly than
For sure.
John, his preoccupation.
I do think, though, fucking your betrothed is different from worrying about fathering a bastard on, to paraphrase Sam, Roz with her perfect tits. Like, it's not the same thing. If Jace and Bela were fucking and Bela got pregnant, they could just very quickly get married. This wouldn't be like a random bastard out in the world. They could make this, they could keep this
I agree to a certain
I
extent,
think.
but the follow-up question is like, why aren't they getting married?
So, okay, in the book, here's a quote we have. Munkin says the prince did not wish to wed until the war was over, whilst Mushroom claims Jacaerys was already married to Sarah Snow, the mysterious bastard girl from Winterfell. As we talked about in the first episode, there were just these kind of like, of the many competing tales and conflicting unreliable narrators, a thread of Jace's trip north is that there was this woman named Sarah Snow who he met and fell in love with, and there are accounts that dispute
but they were
right?
like, we only have time for one scene, so we're not doing Sarah Snow.
You're gonna get mere moments up north with our guy Craig at the wall. So I am inclined to agree with you and say that like if we were embroiled in war and conflict and everybody felt imperiled at every point, like let's get married and let's lock it up. And so to Liz's question, I think that Viserys, if we think back to what Viserys said to Rhaenyra in season 1, you must marry, strengthen your own claim, shore up your succession, multiply. As to your match, make it yourself. Search them out, find one that pleases you as I did. So the pleases you betrothal part is already set. Should Rhaenyra be thinking about what Viserys was thinking about and making sure, because Rhaenyra has plenty of heirs, plenty of kids, but that the line, Jace is my heir, who is Jace's heir? Let's get that in motion so that we can show strength across generations. It's a really good question to ask. As we've talked about many times on the pod, I'm confounded by leaving Maelor out of the show for a few reasons, but this in particular. Like, Aegon has another son in the book, and he just doesn't in the show. And so the combination of the absence of Maelor after Prince Jaehaerys was murdered, people should be asking about this because now Aegon and this part would not have traveled more widely yet, but he's impotent. He cannot father another male heir. And Team Green is not going to prop up Jaehaera as Aegon's heir because, as Larys said when Alicent was making her push to be regent in the 5th episode, like, what would it say if in response to Rhaenyra's crowning, we raised up a woman of our own?
Do you think if Otto were still there, he would be pressing Aemond to get married and start popping out babies?
This is the thing. Obviously, from Aegon's perspective, Aemond thinking about this is a threat.
Yeah.
But Aemond and Aemond's advisor should be thinking about this. This is also yet another area in which Darren not being in the story yet is also like weird because you just have like a larger sense of what all of the potential like lines of succession across both sides are. So they're just missing like characters. Obviously, Darren has been acknowledged and Maelor is just not in the show, so that's different. But in terms of Jace and Bela, the only other thing I'll say is like I don't think Bela would want to
sit out the war to be pregnant.
Give up dragon riding right now to be pregnant. So
I agree. But like if Rhaenyra is like for the greater good of the of the line or whatever.
Rhaenyra was like, Rhaena, I need you to go babysit and then go to Pentos, the place where your mother died.
Bye.
Yeah. So why isn't Rhaenyra making the ask is I think a completely reasonable question. Yeah, that was a good email. It was a good question. It's interesting.
Aaliyah asks, for those of us not tuned in to the MLB, not the MLB. Other than the fate of the beloved A's in our Coliseum, Aaliyah's from Oakland. Can you give us an update on how the O's are doing? Is it still their year, Mallory Rubin?
Thanks for asking. Appreciate it. If we had done this pod a couple days ago, I would have said the Orioles, the Baltimore Orioles, your Baltimore Orioles were the first team in baseball to 70 wins. Best record in the sport, first place in the American League East. Lamentably, mere days later, I'm forced to tell you that they've fallen into second place behind the fucking Yankees. They are still first in the wild card. They're only a half game back at the moment of recording of the Yankees. It's been an interesting stretch. They've been struggling a bit. The bullpen is in shambles. Starting rotation injuries just simply will not cease. And, I hope that they have a really strong September. I still believe in the team. I couldn't be more thrilled right now watching Tony Taters smash home runs. It's been amazing to see Jackson Holliday come back up and thrive. Would it have been my preference this season for Kyle Bradish, John Means, Tyler Wells to all have elbow surgery, and now for Grayson Rodriguez to also be on the IL, and for Danny Colom to be on the IL, and Felix Bautista to miss the season? It would not be my preference for that many pitchers to have arm injuries. No, that's been hard. But could it be their year? Why the fuck not? Oriole Magic, feel the magic. Let's go!
Who's having a worse year than the Orioles? And the Orioles are not having a terrible year.
They're having a great year. Yeah.
We should say Warner Brothers is having a really bad year. They just posted a $10 billion loss, by the way, and less since the finale, like the last 3 months. So I just want to say that's a factor. It's such a huge factor in why we got an 8-episode season, which is not what the writers wanted. Warner Brothers as a company has been struggling. There's a fear that Zaslav is going to sell it off for parts or whatever. There's just a lot of uncertainty happening at the parent company. So when people direct their ire, which I really just go outside and stare at a cloud, I'd say, instead of writing shitty stuff on the internet. But if you want to address it towards someone, I wouldn't address it towards the writers on this show, because it was not their hope and wish and prayer to have an 8-episode season.
Definitely.
So
yeah,
something to think about.
great point.
Last but not least, in this spoiler-free mailbag, I just want to shout out our listener Jay sent us this truly extraordinary lizard email.
Astonishing stuff from Jay.
I forwarded it to Mallory. Mallory, anything you want to say about Jay's lizard email?
I want to compliment Jay's
I knew it.
seamless incorporation of passages from the text.
Yes.
This was
Yes,
a
it was a
master
great-
class.
It was a great email, and Jay reminded me in the email, reminded us in the email that he wrote that moth email when we were covering Ahsoka, and that was also an extraordinary email. So yeah, just Jay, I don't know if Jay's auditioning to write for theringer.com or what a great website or whatever, but just the excellent use of quotes. I thought you were going to compliment the shoes, the Adidas slides that made it into the photos.
I do love a slide, as
of
you know.
Of the lizard. Anyway, great stuff from Jay about how dragons are lizards. They're not cats, they're not dogs, they're lizards. And that was and you're obvious, but it was still a really good email. So,
It was a great email.
And the lizard is incredible that he sent.
A great lizard, yeah.
Okay. Back to you, Mallory.
Wonderful stuff. Back to you. I love this. I love this new.
I do it in trial by
Bro.
content all the time. I do it to
It's
Neil
great.
and Dave all
Great
the time.
stuff.
So yeah.
All right. It is time at last for the previously mentioned book Lookahead. So if you don't want to hear us talk about things that are going to happen in the future on House of the Dragon, because they happen in the future in Fire and Blood, this is where you leave us, and this is where we leave you, and we look forward to seeing you, hopefully in mere days for the Hype Meter, hopefully for Rings of Power. Certainly we hope to see you back in 2 years for House of the Dragon Season 3, and many times in between.
Please, I mean,
Okay.
we've heard from a lot of people saying I'm gonna miss you guys. I'm we're here.
We're here every week, multiple times per week.
Rings of Power
Yeah, give it a go.
is such a fun show that we have a really good time. I love
Also,
it.
Season 1 was 8 episodes. I mean, they're long, but it's completely achievable to catch up before Season 2.
Actually, I'm not. This is gonna sound like a lie. It's true. I actually have a little bit more fun covering Rings of Power with you than House of the Dragon with you.
I know you do. Yeah.
And
Well, I don't think that sounds like a lie. You're on the record with
I
your.
don't think you think it's a lie. I think some of our listeners might think it's a lie, but it's genuinely true. I really love covering that show with you. I love George R. R. Martin, but I am a Tolkien girly. And
Would you say that the professor is always welcome.
He's always welcome. And so it's just such a fun, like above and beyond the show itself, which has real high highs and then some like bumpy, rough spots that we're more than happy to talk about. Getting to like marinate in the Tolkien concepts for weeks at a time is just right up
Genuine
our alley.
pleasure.
So we'll see you in Middle Earth.
Wonderful. I can't wait. Can't believe it's only a couple weeks from now. Season 1 was so fun. So fun to cover. All right. If you don't want to hear the book stuff, we love you. Goodbye. Everyone else? No time for amusements, Thailand. It's the book Look Ahead.
I used to think I knew what it was to claim a dragon. But I understand now that what I thought I knew is ash in the wind.
Okay, Joanna, here's the question. Is what we thought we knew
What a come
ash in
up
the wind?
for Thailand, by the way, who started this season with the indignities of being like a hobby horse for a baby prince and got himself, I don't know, a pirate harem by the end of this season. Great job, Thailand.
Just a whole scene where he mud wrestled.
Yeah.
Okay. Book Look Ahead. Let's hit some of the things we were really looking forward to thinking about now that we've seen the full season and know how it ended and where we're leaving certain characters and how we're setting up things that are still to come. We have to start with your faves, Aegon and Larys. I guess one of my first questions for you here is
Aegon Larry.
Larry I like. I don't know if I'm ready to call this Aegon Egg.
What about
I don't
Egg
know.
2? Egg 2?
Egg the Elder.
Egg
do you
sunny side up?
think?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Poached egg?
Poached egg.
Scrambled egg?
Burnt eggs.
Over easy egg?
Cajun style.
Jeez. Is Larys sending Aegon to Dragonstone in disguise as he does in Fire and Blood and then returning to, staying and hiding in King's Landing? Or are they actually going to Essos for a bit? Like, I have two questions here. One, is there going to be a difference in where they both immediately go? And then relatedly, in what our level of awareness is and when? Because, like, these are reveals. When we learn that Aegon is, like, waiting on Dragonstone, like, are we going to be with him every step of the way and have access to everything that happens? Or will we have that, like, oh, holy shit, he was hiding out there?
So in the book, we should say that Rhaenyra takes King's Landing and is situated in King's Landing. And then when she has to sort of like flee back to Dragonstone, oops, Aegon's there. And shit goes bad for Rhaenyra because Aegon, still burnt, but feeling much better, is on Dragonstone. I feel like thus far, the show has been unable to absent a character like Daemon, or Rhaenyra. Not that I want them to, but like I think since Aegon is like,
basically,
I don't know, their fourth most
Otto
important character
and that
or whatever.
Felt really weird when Otto
Yeah,
just
it was
like
very
vanished.
strange with
Yeah.
Otto. You're right. Otto's a good example. I think what this all depends on, and we're going to get to this at the end of all of this, is sort of like when we think Rhaenyra coming back to Dragonstone and confronting Aegon is going to happen. Because
I feel like that's going to be like 3/4 of the way through season 4.
Yeah. So like
maybe later. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe they will just invent a whole adventure for Larys and Aegon in Essos.
With the goat fuckers?
Does that sound fun? I don't know. They're our favorite duo, so I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do with them. I'm very curious. Is it connected to the Otto's in a cage plot? You know what I mean? Like, and we don't know what's happening with Otto in the cage. So
no, we don't.
Yeah.
Still no fucking clue what's going on with that.
No fucking clue.
Like I'm torn on this because when you get to that moment in Fire and Blood, I mean, again, for both of them, like, for the Clubfoot had never left King's Landing, as would soon be revealed. That's like just a really fun, exciting thing to read. But when you get to Dragonstone and you're with Rhaenyra and you're with Aegon III the blood drained from the queen's cheeks when she beheld the bodies, but young Prince Aegon was the first to realize what they meant. Mother, flee, he shouted, but too late. It's like, it's just incredible. I think it's
going to go for that,
like that, but
little
like,
blonde toddler to be like, mother, flee.
hold on to that, because we've got some other moments to talk about on that front. But I don't want to leave. I don't think we can leave Aegon.
No, so I
for
think
that
we have to
long. And
invent
also
a whole like.
Yeah, like structurally, also the way that we then kind of like it's revealed to us what happened, you know, with like hiding out among the fisher folk, and then Sunfire and Aegon making their way back to each other. We'll talk about Sunfire more in a minute. And then, of course, the Aegon, Sunfire, Bela Moondancer fight.
Yes.
Like all of that it kind of like unfolds for us, but the show doesn't work in that way. Like, especially where that's going to happen, presumably, in the story. We wouldn't like take a long 20-minute pause to go watch what had happened. That just seems impossible.
Previously, this is how Moondancer died. Like, no, I agree.
Sad. I am really looking forward to watching Aegon fuck up his jump and his legs just like shatter. I'm really looking forward to that. This poor fucker. Oh man. Great stuff. Here's a question, given how gripped we've been by this relationship, by this duo. How you feeling? Give me a temp check on what we are eventually building toward, which is Larys's role in the poisoning of Aegon.
It'll just depend on how they write it, honestly. I think there's a version of it that is like conflicted for Larys, that is like either for the greater good of the realm or the greater good of Larys himself, or a mercy kill of sorts or something like that. You know what I mean? I think there's a way in which to I'm not trying to turn Larys into a good guy. He's not. I love that about him, that he's not a good guy, but like I imagine it'll be just much more complicated in the show version.
Yeah. I'm really excited. I'm excited because the way that I was going to say the enigma of Larys and then realized it's literally the passage. The enigma that is Larys Strong, the clubfoot, has vexed students of history for generations. Like, the more we can interrogate that complexity and get little glimpses, however small or still mysterious, into what drove a given decision, the better. I just can't wait. And I like too, because there is so much mystery around Aegon's death and the nature of the poisoning. But I always love that line in the book, like, yet whilst the hand that poisoned the Arbor Red will never be known, we can have no doubt that it was done at the behest of Larys Strong. Great stuff.
Sunny?
Should we talk about Sunfire? Okay, I'm just like perplexed by this.
Sunfire, if you're listening to this and you haven't read the book, Sunfire's alive. And
it has quite a role to play.
And literally cannot be killed, because Sunfire is how Rhaenyra dies. Like, and there's no way the history could have gotten that wrong. Like, that's too much of the history said it. Like, there's no way the history got Sunfire roasting Rhaenyra alive, like, wrong. So, can I just say,
that particular, Aegon's dragon roasting and eating his sister, like what that feels like it symbolically represents about this civil war, like a family tearing itself apart. It's just like, I don't know that you can sub that for something else. And also Sunfire has to kill Grey Ghost and Moondancer. Like, Sunfire's got a lot of work to do.
Well, that's if they even do Grey Ghost. I'm not confident they're even going to do Grey Ghost at all, but definitely Sunfire has to kill Moondancer. I think I feel in my heart of hearts that there's a version of this season that ends with like what Neil over on Trial by Content has been calling the beginning of the Sunfire Revenge Tour, which is like, because we hear that Mooten is going to Rook's Rest. This is something that is like a line in the show.
Yes.
We're going to Rook's Rest. Sunfire, long in the dying, is still alive. This is my favorite moment of Talk of Thrones, without question, was us after the finale talking about this in the dressing room, and Chris Ryan almost did a spit take with a cupcake, going like, "Wait, that dude's alive?" about Sunfire. That dude's alive. Yeah, Sunfire lives.
Oh man.
And people are gonna be really confused, and I have to believe that there was a version of this in the finale, where we got the forces at Rook's Rest torched by Sunfire. And I have to wonder again if this is sadly a budgetary choice, because when I was asking Dave about like what are the dragons left that they have to model, and he was like, it's a whole different model for a burnt Sunfire. That's a different model. You can't just like slap some char on your existent Sunfire model. So in terms of dragon design, Tessarian is a model that needs to be like designed and rendered, and burnt Sunfire is a model that needs to be designed and rendered. So like I feel like they did not have the budget to do just like one more dragon, but they could have just like had these guys walking into the tree line and then like a burst of fire and screams or something like that. That also sounds kind of costly to do, but less costly than maybe designing a whole dragon. But you gotta give us something on Sunfire. Or
like even just like have this maybe wouldn't have felt satisfying, but it certainly wouldn't have felt as confusing. Like have somebody say Sunfire's wing is too badly damaged, like he's too hurt to take flight, he's like healing. I mean, that wouldn't have been the most like scintillating TV, but it would. Or
there have been weird rumors of the bodies disappearing at
Richter. We came to bury the bodies and they were all gone. Someone's hungry. Like, I don't know, because I think the long and the dying Kristen language, like as we talked about when we were covering that episode, that is actually akin to saying he was still alive when I left. Like it was taking forever to die. And then there's that weird Rhaenyra line at the end. You're like, okay, well, maybe word just hasn't spread that Sunfire is actually alive. But then like multiple episodes later, having Aegon say my dragon is dead and almost trying to like cement that impression with the viewership felt really weird to me, because I think this is another time where the wait, like, dude, it's going to be
2 years,
so long before the next season. And then I would presume, unless we have a moment with Mooten at Rook's Rest early in the season and we learn Sunfire's live, which hopefully we will, it's going to be a minute before we get this confirmation. And I worry that at that point, people are going to be like, wait, what?
We were
and
talking
like,
about
it's not going to feel like satisfying. It's just going to be confusing.
We were talking about on Trial by Content about how that might be a sick cold open for season 3 of House of the Dragons. But
that'd be great.
Our listener Grover, not a Tully as far as I know, Rony Mill says... that points out that long in the dying Kristen's language is a sort of maybe lift from the book Game of Thrones, where Sandor Clegane talking about Bran says the boy is a long time dying. Of course, Bran lives, as does Sunny, the Sunfire. Sunny came home with a vengeance. I think it's, when I asked Condal about Sunfire, his answer was, I encourage everyone to go and buy Fire and Blood and read the book. So like they have, a lot of people have been trying to solve like, how do they do this without Sunfire? They're not doing it without Sunfire. They're definitely,
that would be impossible.
Definitely bringing Sunfire back. It's just odd storytelling to pretend that he's dead just for the sake of this, I guess, the surprise later when we find out he's not. I have to think it's budget, but you know, I don't know for certain.
I also feel like on the one hand, what we got from Aegon, again, we talked about how that was a scene we absolutely loved, was quite impactful. Like Aegon feeling like he has nothing left. I think
would Aegon have left with Larys if he had known?
Right, like Aegon longing to return to and be reunited with his dragon. I mean, obviously, like them discovering each other and making their way back to each other, and that question in the book of like, did Sunfire sense Aegon's need? Like, I'm here for that reunion. That's great.
You love a boy and his dragon.
I do. I love a boy and his dragon, and I really love the. They found themselves face to face with, quote, a dead man and a dying dragon line in the book. Just great stuff. George. Speaking of deaths
or budgetary cuts,
Gullet.
Battle of the Gullet. This feels like I actually think they don't have to do the Battle of the Gullet in episode 1 if they don't want to. They could do it in episode 2. Like there's time enough for like building of tension. But actually, given the response of like, where's the action at the end of season 2, it might behoove them actually to just like launch with a big battle and just be like, here we go. Here's that fighting you were asking about. We're going to talk about all the battles that they have left.
Yep.
And we were trying to do some of this math on the trial by content as well, but it's just sort of like they almost have to have a battle like almost every single episode if they're going to do every single battle
Not
that's
a lot
left.
of time for breaks.
Because Condal implied that we should expect 8 episode seasons for the final 2 seasons as well. So only 16 more episodes and a lot of battles to come.
Yeah.
The gullet.
Yes. I can't fucking wait.
Our listener Jeff asks, and we both kind of obsessed with this.
This is an incredible idea.
What are your guys' thoughts on the possibility that Ulf might be responsible for Jace's demise at the Battle of the Gullet? After the way that Jace has been treating him lately, I wouldn't put it past Ulf to play a hand in Jace's death. Maybe Ulf has a chance to save him and passes it up. I'm sure it won't look deliberate since he's turning on Rhaenyra later. Okay, so like Battle of the Gullet, the 2 blonde toddlers who are on the ship with one teeny tiny hatchling still wet from the egg dragon.
Yes. The gay abandon will sail right into the Triarchy's teeth in episode 1.
Yeah.
For sure.
Besieged by pirates, etc. Jace, who has been itching to go into battle on Vermax, will fly into battle. The dragon seeds, if we're following what happens in the book, the dragon seeds join him. Sea Smoke is there, Silverwing is there, Verpithor is there. So like,
and Sheep Stealer and Nettles. So
and Sheep Stealer, so Sheep Stealer and
makes
Rhaena.
Will spectacular debut.
Will Rhaena come through and actually save the children? Who's to say? And Jace dies. The first Vermax goes down, and then Jace, still alive, gets hit by a crossbow. So like, will Vermax go down and Ulf could save Jace on like off a piece of driftwood or whatever, and then like doesn't, or I don't know. So I think that's really fun in the vein of like Aemon and Aegon, like people like and then Jace dies not just from like rushing into battle when other people advise caution, but also as a result of like his fairly like classist shitty behavior over the last couple episodes, if this is like sort of what bites him in the end. I don't know. What do you think?
I thought you were going to say the validity of his fear.
Also true. I was right. Yeah. At least I was right. Yeah.
Oh man. I really like this theory.
Yeah.
This feels totally in bounds. And like, you know, one of the things from Fire and Blood that really makes you feel before first Tumbleton, before Ulf and Hugh turn cloak, one of the things that like starts to give you that pit in your stomach after Gullet is the line like about Ulf and Hugh celebrating and drinking, and like, you know, meanwhile you've got Corlys like, if this is victory, like I don't want to win another. Everyone is just like in a state of absolute shock and despair. And then we've got Mushroom tells us there were 2 men on Dragonstone that night who drank to the slaughter in a smoky tavern beneath the castle, the Dragon Riders, Hugh the Hammer and Ulf the White. So, and like then you get that, you know, Ulf laughing to Hugh saying, we are knights now truly. If I on that, we should be lords. So like that presentation just of like Ulf's greed and ambition and lust, which of course was very central in the Dragonseed dinner.
Yeah.
Something like that after we watch him maybe like do something horrific. But then of course also the other thing that's hard not to think about is that moment between Adam and Ulf at the dinner with like, we have time enough to, like see who is a coward. And so maybe it's like, if we see Ulf like spooked, because it's always striking when you're reading Gullet, which is one of my favorite stretches in the books. Not a unique opinion. Many people feel this way. This is why they keep saying they've got to really crush this and nail this, right? Several differing tales were told afterward of how and why the dragon fell, meaning Vermax. Yeah. So like there's a mystery already there of like, how did this happen? What happened? And there's a lot there with Jace's character that's going to be like rich to mine, but Ulf, there's completely room here. There's enough room here to play with like Ulf having some role out of cowardice, out of foolhardy, ambition, out of malice, anything. Like I really like this idea from Jeff. I think this is going to happen. Now I can't get this out of my head.
It feels like we were talking about how they were just going so hard on this Ulf and Jay stuff in the last few episodes.
And this did not occur to me as like when.
And
really,
we were
like,
sort of confused because they don't have much to do. You know, Jace is going to die soon, and then what Ulf does later has nothing to do with Jace really. So like, why were they doing this? If it's a Gullet setup, I think that's interesting.
Great, you want to talk about the tiny babies and tiny dragons for a second?
Yeah, listen. So the way this works in the book. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Aegon hops on Stormcloud when they get attacked
Yes.
and flies off for help.
Yes.
And then Stormcloud is like, that was too much for me.
Yes.
Done.
It's very sad.
And then Viserys like disguises himself and hides
Yes.
the eggs. And so like
It is a long time until he is discovered.
very long
It's a
time.
minute.
He's off to Essos to become, I don't know, a pirate babe. Who knows? These kids are too young to do this.
They literally can't do this now, which I just don't understand this.
So, and there isn't a character with them on the gay abandon. Like we don't know any of those like eerie men that went with them or whatever.
Right.
There isn't like a character who could like hide Viserys in a way, you know, unless we like meet them in the episode 1. So I mean, it's not too hard of a fix for Jace to hear about what's happening out on the bay from, you know, someone sends a raven or something. You know, it doesn't have to be a blonde toddler on a teeny tiny bat-sized dragon. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't have to happen necessarily. It seems like it won't. But the Viserys part, the way the Viserys like hides.
I'm the other way on it. I feel like Viserys can just like be taken captive. He can just be kidnapped. He can just be scooped up. Like, I guess then we have some complexities about like the, you know, his identity, which there's some stuff to figure out there. You're completely right. For me though, like with Aegon, does he have to fly back on Stormcloud, and does Stormcloud have to be riddled with arrows and die? I guess not. There's another way that they can. This will be traumatic for him no matter what. Also, our guy Aegon the Younger has a lot of trauma still to come. He's not going to be short on trauma at the end of this. But only 9, he had never flown before, and he would never fly again. For Stormcloud had been terribly wounded as he fled the gay abandon, and also just like the regret that he carries, he would never forgive him. All the joy had gone out of the boy. He would never forgive himself for leaping onto Stormcloud and abandoning his little brother to the enemy. These are like crucial things that shape his character. And obviously the Dragonbane moniker and like that idea, it's other stuff is involved with that in terms of the dying of the dragons.
It just depends.
This feels like crucial, doesn't it?
I actually disagree.
Tell me why. Convince me this is going to be okay.
Only because I don't think the show ever plans to bring these children out of toddlerhood. So I don't.
Is the show? I mean, we were going to get to this later, but is the show not going to end with Aegon's crowning?
My main conviction I have about the ending of the show, and I could easily be wrong. I think the show and the writers and everyone making the show is like Rhaenyra is our main character, and I think when Rhaenyra dies, I do not think there is much show after that.
Right.
So like
but like there could be like 2 episodes. Like
I think we are only one episode after Rhaenyra dies.
Yeah.
I think that's it. And like however much we like yada yada through, or whether or not we leave it much earlier than people were expecting, because they're like, what about the Hour of the Wolf? What about this, that, and the other thing? Like, what about all the stuff that happens?
The Wolf.
Yeah. So like I think we're gonna end this with the blonde babies still being babies, and so
let's crown
the impact
baby,
on their character doesn't really much matter, you know.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll noodle on it. I do think the very end of the show is
there's no more time jumps, right? And so like,
but that could they still expand the timeline slightly? I mean, they're so fucking young though. It's like he's not going to be 9. This is like we have a version of this with Joff.
Oh yeah,
Joff is so young and so much younger than he's supposed to be.
Little toddler baby
try to ride Cyrax.
But it has to die horribly.
Boy, I mean, it's painful enough when he's older. Like if like
that description is so tough
that.
in the book.
I know.
I feel like that's an occasion where we could just be watching Rhaenyra as that happens. I don't know. Anyway,
interesting. Okay, well, I will remain puzzled about why these children are so young. I mean, I hope that Stormcloud somehow makes it out alive, but I don't think that can happen. So we'll find out. Definitely too small to fly. What if he's not? What if they're like, well, the thing about the baby being a baby is like less weight for the baby dragon.
What if he does it like Mary Poppins with her umbrella and just like holds onto one like dragon leg and is sort of like lifted up that way?
I mean, I'm here for it. You know? to the gullet on the morrow, but maybe let's stretch the morrow to like, I don't know.
7 years.
How quickly can Stormcloud grow? Oh boy. Okay, speaking of the Triarchy, Joe, anything else on the Triarchy or Lohar or Stepstone's front? Are you like thinking ahead to the calamities that await in the eventual Daughters' War? Or are you like, there's literally a line in the book that says that is outside the scope of this tale, and so just once again can't wait to not be thinking about the Triarchy again?
I think Lohar has been like a big hit as a character. It has been my understanding. And so I think we're gonna get like plenty of Lohar Thailand stuff, but I don't think we're making it to the Daughters' War.
No, certainly not. Do you think we're gonna get Lohar's eventual murder?
Probably. Sad.
So many characters have to die. People are just going to be dying all the time in seasons 3 and 4, just constantly. Like multiple deaths per episode. Maybe multiple deaths per scene.
A lot of people and a lot of dragons have to die. We'll get to it in just a second. I want to talk about winter wolves and river people. I'm not saying river men because Black Alley's on my list.
Yeah.
So we talked about this a little bit, but like, what do we think of cutting? So we talked about this in the finale pod, the fact that there was footage of Craig Stark marching in front of the winter wolves across the bridge of the twins.
Yes.
That they filmed it. There's behind the scenes footage of it. And they cut Craig out and just left it with the winter wolves. So in the book, Craig does not come down with the winter wolves.
Right.
Roddy the Ruin, Roderick Dustin is sort of the leader of the winter wolves. So like, and we're headed towards a fish feed and a Tumbleton and you know, a butcher's ball and all this sort of stuff like that. So like, do we think they're going to bring Craig down early, especially if we're not getting Hour of the Wolf or something like that? Or are we getting Roddy the Ruin? Will we get Red Rob? Will we get Black Alley? Will we get Longleaf the Lion Slayer? Garibald Grey? Like,
we fucking better.
We like all these river people that they had an opportunity to sort of introduce this season, but instead we've got like Peter Piper's here, Oscar Tully's here, like all this sort of stuff like that. I just want to shout out Garibald Grey for this line when Kristen Cole is trying to bargain. Dormammu, I've come to bargain, right? And Kristen Cole's like, if I strike my banners, do you promise us our lives? And Garibald says, I made my promise to the dead. I told them I would build a sept for them out of traitors' bones. I don't have near enough bones yet. So, I mean, we have to have that in the show.
I mean, I feel similarly about Pate of Longleaf, about Longleaf the Lion Slayer. Like, obviously the earning of the moniker by slaying Lord Jason is part of it. But then, like, I mean, another character certainly could get the line, but, you know, we've talked about this previously in other book sections. Longleaf has one of the lines of the book. Like,
to Kristen, you want to say
at the Butcher's Ball, I'll have no songs about how brave you died, Kingmaker, declared Longleaf. There's tens of thousands dead on your account. He was speaking to a corpse. We just have to get that moment. I hope that there's room to like introduce enough of these characters. There are so many that I don't mind condensing some, but we've got to get Roddy. We have to get Black Alley. We have to. I would love to get Longleaf in there. The Kragan timing is like, I don't know. I guess I would have liked to see Craig at the end of the season. I would have liked to know for sure that he was going to be like incorporated into the Winter Wolves storyline and just present more consistently earlier. I don't mind them not committing to that to give themselves the flexibility to make a different choice. I feel we agree. We just both said this. Like, we're not going to get Hour of the Wolf. There's no way the story moves into like actively into the Regency. But I think Craig coming in a little bit before Aegon the Younger's crowning and still being a part of this transitional phase and next step is achievable, even absent the Hour of the Wolf. So I hope we get Craig sooner, but I guess I'm prepared not to. I'm not quite as prepared to not get some of these other figures who are just so colorful in the book.
Nathan, our listener Nathan asked, of all the characters we're expecting to meet in the next 2 seasons of House of the Dragon, Bloody Ben, the Shepherd, Unwin Peak, possibly an older version of Egg 3, and of course fucking Darren the Daring, who are you most looking forward to, and who would you cast in those roles? Love the pod more and more every episode. Thanks, Nathan.
Thanks, Nathan, how kind. The actual answer is Darren. How could it not be? But my pet answer is Bloody Ben, who I love. I legitimately can't wait for the lads. I just can't wait.
Love a lad. I want to hit you with a couple with 2 casting ideas.
I'm terrible at the casting ideas. I just can't. I just don't have I can't do it.
Well,
Other
so
than make Charles Melton Zayden, I've got nothing.
I got kind of good at understanding the Nina Gold method, but Kate Rose James is the casting director on House of the Dragon, not Nina Gold. And something that's consistent about Kate Rose James, who also did the casting for Raised by Wolves, is that she keeps using Raised by Wolves cast members from that show. I think there have been like
Lady Jane, right?
3 at this point. Yeah, and Alan. And Gail Rankin was also in Raised by Wolves, stuff like that. So she's casting a lot out of this show that she previously cast.
Interesting.
So there's a kid that she's used twice in the past called Felix Jameson, who actually appeared in season 8 of Game of Thrones. He played the little boy climbing up to see Jon and Dany's army arrive in Wintertown.
Sure. Yeah.
But he's about the right age. And what's true so far, I guess other than Ty Tennant, which doesn't really count, is that she's casting like unknowns for these kids. Like, we're not going to cast someone who we like no one recognizes any of these kids. Yeah. So, but we are happy to cast veteran actors in some of the adult roles. So the only other casting thing I want to mention is the Shepherd.
Yeah.
We're going to get to a Shepherd theory later that I actually really quite like.
Interesting.
Okay. Mixed. Well, since I'm no longer rooting for Kristen Cole's death, I kind of like it. We'll get to that. It's a popular theory.
Right.
I kind of like it.
I'm excited to hear your take on it. Yeah.
But we're not him. We're not the Shepherd is Kristen Cole, actually. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Peter Capaldi?
I have no notes. Zero
One other
notes.
option?
Yes.
Christopher Eccleston.
Also fantastic. So
yeah.
Those are both great.
I think those are really good. Chris, especially coming off of like the Leftovers watches that I've been doing, like this sort of like unhinged zealot of a leader.
Yeah.
Chris Eccleston is really good at that. And then Capaldi is capable of being so nasty if he wants to, yet entertainingly nasty and very charismatic. And why not put another doctor?
Yeah, let's get every doctor in here eventually.
Yeah,
that's great.
Exactly. What is Jodie gonna do? Let's find out. Yeah. So those are my like casting thoughts.
I love it. I love it. I love that you're like, where do these casting directors tend to pull from? This is great. Look at you doing the work.
Nina Gold would always pull from British theater, which I loved. And Kate Rose James does as well. But like the fact that she keeps like people have noticed that she is like pillaging from the Raised by Wolves cast. Yeah. So
I have not seen that show, but Adam has watched it and he's mentioned it a few times, which is okay. Great stuff. Bring on the Bloody Ben era. I can't wait for Black Alley. I can't
Black Alley, come on. Yeah.
I mean, maybe they end up doing another spinoff, and it's just the Black Alley and Craig Stark.
It is tough that
experience.
It is tough that we spent so much time in the Riverlands. Again, it's like if you count up all the new characters that they introduced, Ulf, Hugh, Simon Strong, Alan and Adam, Alice Rivers, blah blah blah. Like Oscar Tully. Like if they had introduced all those really fun Riverlanders. Like that's just like so many new cast members to add. Yeah. But, bringing them in for season 3, you gotta have them because like with love and respect to like, I don't know, Lady Mallister or whoever these other like river lords and ladies that we've met. I need these other river people.
We're aligned here.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of action in the Riverlands, let's talk a little bit more about Daemon's werewood vision. And also we'll hit on Helena's prophecy a little bit here. What do you want to say about the glimpse of the dead dragons that we got? Because obviously we felt like there was some stuff we could not say here outside of the book section about the possibilities. Do you think this is actually an event from canon? There are a few possibilities, or have you come down on the side of like this is symbolic of like the death of the Targaryen dynasty and Targaryen strength.
You shared concept art in our notes for the finale of like the initial idea was like basically like a sea of dead dragons.
Yeah.
Because what we got was essentially like what looked like kind of 2, maybe 3, you know,
There's
like
a dragon in the foreground, and you can definitely see some like
wing.
tattered wings. But yeah, what else awaits in the background? Hard to say.
So like if it's something, I would pick the dragon pit. But if it's more just sort of like the dying of the dragons, they're all going to die before this is done.
Yeah.
That's sort of more where I'm leaning symbolic. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so hard to see, and like deliberately like the color palette, it makes it tougher to like it could definitely be God's Eye and the thing that is closest to Daemon's.
You and I were trying to track how long the neck was. Like
Long
how long is the camera panning on the neck?
Axes length neck. Yeah.
Yeah.
This could be Second Tumbleton. It could be the storming of the pit. I also kind of like the idea of like the symbolic just shattering of Targaryen strength. But I guess also that can be true inside of this specifically being God's Eye, for example. But yeah, it was so interesting to see that concept art. So interesting. Joanna, I'd like to take your temperature on the Daemon Lives theories. This is like a long time passion point among many readers. And certainly there's more fodder here, right? Coming out of the finale.
So Daemon and Aemon fight over the God's Eye, Caraxes and Vhagar. Aemon's body is found with a sword through the other eye.
Great stuff. Yeah.
The dragon's bodies are found.
Yep.
Right? Daemon's body is never found.
Yep.
So
mysterious.
Is he at the bottom of the God's Eye? Has he run off to be with Nettles somewhere? Is he on the Isle of Faces forever and after Amen? Is he the new, seer on the Isle of Faces or something like that? I don't know if they can resist a Daemon Lives moment with Matt Smith in the mix. You know what I mean? We're going to talk again, we're getting ahead of ourselves on the timing stuff, but like I have been saying from the start that I think they're going to try to push the God's Eye, Battle Above the God's Eye as late as possible so they can keep Matt Smith on the press tour for season 4.
Yeah.
So, but even if they push it as far back as season 4, it has to be early season 4.
Season 4. Yeah.
So Daemon lives so that we get Matt Smith doing other stuff for the rest of the season. Feels, if I were a writer, feels very tempting to me, They
could even like not reveal that to us until like the very I mean, is Thrones gonna do a stinger? Like what that final idea of like,
and will he turn to the camera and wink?
I love it. I also like to again, not only have people speculated about this for a while and the fact that his body was not found is such rich fodder, but like then you have something like in the episode here, you have like until death or the end of our story. It felt such deliberate language choice to kind of fuel this speculation. And, of course, had like Condell saying in the panel that you guys did, I will just say that just because the thing is told to you doesn't mean it's going to happen exactly that way. And we've seen obviously in history and all that be misinterpreted before, both in the world of Fire and Blood and in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire. So that could apply to a lot of different aspects of the tale, including a lot of different aspects of God's Eye, of the Aemon Daemon showdown. But like, because this battle, a thing that is adored, a thing that is like, has to be in top 3 and everybody's most anticipated. Like
the way that Condell was talking about it, he seems to think God's Eye is number 1, Gullet number 2. Like that's what he thinks is the,
I think
feels
that's
right.
of what, certainly of what remains is it feels right. So few were on hand to bear witness that it would be some time before word of Prince Daemon's last battle became widely known. Like, not a lot of witnesses to what happens here. So again, plenty of room. To show us something new.
Yeah. This moving of Daemon, this idea, this import that Alice is placing on Daemon's like role and his like being a player on the board and stuff like that. Him going to the God's Eye as like an act of like loyalty to Rhaenyra, but also does he have more to do in the story? This idea that Alice says you're going to die here, like, is he physically going to die, or does Daemon Targaryen, the legend that is Daemon Targaryen, die at the God's Eye?
Right.
And this person with a different name doing something else.
Yeah.
On the Isle of Faces, maybe.
The
does
Oliver
he live,
Queen.
Yeah. I love it.
Something else. I'm into it. I'm really into it. Thrones. So Daemon sees Rhaenyra sitting on the throne.
Mhm.
We've got that Helena line to Aegon about Aegon will be king. He's yet to see victory. He sits on a wooden throne. So this was just really fun, like not only just the adjacency of these glimpses and mentions in the show, but then, you know, again, when we talk about like prophecy and how much room there is for characters to misinterpret or misunderstand, like, yeah, Rhaenyra's going to sit the throne, but it's not going to go well. I mean, frankly, right from that first moment, the Iron Throne had spurned her and her days upon it would be few. And then Aegon, like,
Can't walk up those steps to the
can't
Iron
walk
Throne.
up his what's the word? Withered? His withered leg, his like stick legs that had been shattered and like melted away. So I just love this as a way to play with the idea of like, yeah, telling us something or showing us something, but like, what does it really mean?
While we're here,
Mhm.
I'm going to read this email from Andrea.
Okay.
While we're in the realm of prophecy and theories.
Yeah.
Andrew says, my question for you both is, what is a favorite theory you have seen for the future of a character? Favorite being something you look forward to, possibly being true, or just the most ridiculous? Again, we'll get to the Kristen Cole theory in a second, but
I can't wait to hear your takes on the Kristen theory.
I don't know. I am enamored of this idea that's been floating around that the end of this show is Alicent telling Aegon III, baby Aegon III, the Song of Ice and Fire prophecy. That's where it all ends. And this is
Yeah.
When Condell talks about adapting George, the reference that he goes to more, I think, than even like Star Wars or anything like that, is he talks about King Arthur. And in the musical Camelot ends with King Arthur telling, you know, dying or about to go to battle and die, King Arthur telling a young boy about like what Camelot was, and like this idea that the young boy is potentially Sir Thomas Mallory or whatever, but like this idea of like, this is the story, this is the generation. I, Alicent, as like the longtime friend of Rhaenyra, despite all these things that happened, I, the keeper of this prophecy now, pass it down to you. This is how it gets to you, Egg 3. I'm so enamored of that. If we don't get, and which is why I think we're ending it, like it's going to end so much earlier than people think.
Yeah.
If we don't get, I'm so enamored now that I'm worried that if we don't get it, I will be disappointed. So that's sort of where I am with that.
And then someone pops into the scene and they're like, pretty sure like when, you know, he became Rhaenyra's heir, she mentioned this. And then someone else is like, but he was like 4, so he doesn't remember.
Toddler. So
I love that. That's really interesting. I definitely think the show ends with Aegon III being crowned. And so like this being a part of it, like inheriting that legacy and Alicent playing a key role in that, embracing, accepting, passing along this thing that she resisted because of what it represented about her misunderstanding or mishandling of duty. Fascinating. That would be
Alicent
great.
in the Viserys role, like maybe even taking him down to like,
that would be incredible.
Be in front of the
I love
dragon
that.
skull.
Yeah. And like has to hold him because he's a baby. And so he can't walk.
In my mind, she's like, she has him on her hip, essentially.
A boy child, you bounced on your knee.
Boy child's not nearly as fun as girl
No, it's
child.
not, really not. I really like that. And Alicent, there is so much mystery for us as book readers of like what they are going to do with her. I mean, I'm now we're jumping around a little bit because we're talking about her. I'm quite concerned, of course, about what Rhaenyra's response is going to be to showing up and being like, you didn't keep your promise because you said I could kill your kid and Aegon's gone. Doesn't seem like that's going to go well, but there's just so much room for them to play with what Alicent is up to and how we get to spend our time with her, given how backburnered she is after Rhaenyra takes over. So, you know, obviously we had been talking about that ever since Big Bathtub. Like, what are they going to do? And then this additional wrinkle then of the bigger bathtub of the meeting on Dragonstone. I'm intrigued by that. I wonder if Alicent will come up in our next topic here, which is Aemond.
Yeah.
Because I would like to ask you, who do you want to see? Now that we know how our time at Harrenhal goes, who do you want to see Aemond have to face in Aemond's ghost therapy sessions at Harrenhal?
I think we've gone back and forth on this a little bit, and I think So to me, the most interesting prompt is like, if you can only pick one, right? Because I think there are a lot of good options here.
Yeah.
If I can only pick one, I pick Leo Ashton, who played young Aemond so well.
That'd
And
be
when
great.
we talked to Ewan Mitchell about his performance, he said he like took a lot from Leo's performance and stuff like that. So Aemond meeting the younger version of himself, or Titanic, because we love Titanic as younger Aegon, or an unscarred Tom. Okay, I'm losing control here. Everyone,
This is how we ended up with 20 Damon dreams.
an
Like, we can't
unscarred Tom Glencarney, or bring Patty back. I don't know. It's a lot, but Leo Ashton would be my number one. How about you?
I think I would probably rank Alicent first, because just the mommy stuff. Like I need it, and then Aegon, because like really confronting what he did to him. And then I would go Luke, because of the guilt that he carries, but that's related to like young Aemond, which I think
That
would
kid
be
is going to be 4 to 5 years older.
Yeah.
He's going to be so tall.
Yeah.
Because Leo Ashton can be older because like
territory. Right. He could be like, I became
this,
yeah, but not Luke. You'd be like,
but
you
not Luke.
never made it.
Frozen in amber. Okay. Our listener Eli
man.
in the asked for this in the book spoiler section. So Eli,
Yes.
I hope you made it this far, wants to know what happens to their favorite character, Simon Strong. And I got bad news for Eli. Okay. This is from Fire and Blood. This is what happens when Aemond Targaryen arrives to Harrenhal. Daemon is gone. Aemond is pissed because he thought he was going to go fight Daemon and Caraxes, but Daemon is gone to King's Landing, and they missed each other. And so Aemond arrives at Harrenhal, and who does he find instead? Our guy, Simon Strong. Fire and Blood. First to suffer for it was Sir Simon Strong. Prince Aemon had no love for any of that ilk, and the haste with which the Castellan had yielded Harrenhal to Daemon convinced him the old man was a traitor. Sir Simon protested his innocence, insisting that he was a true and loyal servant of the crown. Ellipses, some stuff happens. Aemon commanded that Sir Simon be given a sword. Let the gods decide if you speak truly, he said. If you are innocent, the warrior will give you the strength to defeat me. The duel that followed, I just need you all to pause right now and imagine poor Simon Russell Beale in his plum velvets with a sword.
Oh, man.
The duel that
Yes,
followed was
exactly.
utterly one-sided. All the accounts agree. The prince cut the old man to pieces, then fed his corpse to Vhagar.
No.
Nor did Sir Simon's grandsons long outlive him. One by one, every man and boy with strong blood in his veins was dragged forth and put to death until the heap made of their heads stood 3 foot tall. There aren't that many Strongs in the show.
Yeah, they didn't cast enough Strongs to do that.
It's gonna be 1 or 2 episodes for Sir Simon Russell Beale in season 3, I fear. So
Sad.
if they go by this, you know. If I were them, I would just say, like, just kidding.
keep him around.
He's safe because he's so entertaining, but I think he's gonna
sure.
go
They
out.
said all the accounts agree. A very rare thing to hear, but fuck it. Let's keep Sir Simon in as long as we can. I'll miss him.
It'll be really hard for Aemond to get any sympathy from the audience if he is cutting Sir Simon Strong, fan favorite Sir Simon Strong, to pieces and feeding him to Vhagar.
Do you think there will be red currants at Harrenhal by then, or no?
I don't know. And I can't believe that Alice Rivers would watch that and be like, "Yeah, that's my man." That's surprising to me.
I'm so curious to see what the Alice Aemond dynamic ends up being. How it differs from the book, how it differs from the Alice Daemon dynamic. This is one of the things I'm most like interested in seeing
There's
play out.
nothing
on the
about
screen.
current Aemond that I would think would be alluring to Alice Rivers. You know what I mean?
It kind
Like
of gets back to like a lot of the questions you were raising throughout the season of like, what is driving Alice? What, you know, and then things Alice has said herself about like the player,
Players
the
on the board.
piece, and like,
Yeah.
there's got to be something else kind of at play there. Joe, speaking of
Aemond.
the Targs, Aemond, Helena, I'm curious if anything that happened in the finale has had a bearing on what you think is going to happen to Helena, which is already a death kind of embroiled in mystery and differing accounts and theories and speculation. Do you have any new thoughts based on the finale and what we saw from Helena?
I kind of like the idea. If she's got to go, falls or is pushed out of a window. The Helena Targaryen story. We got a listener email about this on Trial by Content. There is the way it's written. It seems that Helena jumps the same moment that Aemon falls over the Battle of the God's Eye. It's hard to resist that visual of them like falling at the same time, Helena and Aemon. So, and if she's going to jump, I would think I would prefer her jump than her being pushed. Like having actual I'm not ever pro suicide, right, but having some control over her own destiny versus being like yet again another victim pushed around on the board, etc.
Yeah.
But there's this whole like brothel plot line that I do not think there is just no way.
Absolutely not.
They're doing the brothel plot line with Helena where Rhaenyra puts Helena like in a brothel. Like that's not happening. So like, yeah, I'm very curious.
Yeah. I was wondering if like the Alicent and who will she be if her mind is broken question to aim into the finale was there to like point toward some sort of, because this was what from the book we were kind of expecting post Blood and Cheese, right? But this is not what happened. Yeah. And so then you're like, is it going to happen later and in a different way? Or is it not? And this is an example of the histories failing to properly capture what really transpired. And the people who are sharing their account thinking, not understanding Helena's gift and mistaking it for madness.
Just because she likes bugs. Doesn't mean she's lost all of her faculties. I think it's kind of the opposite because Condell's implication in that panel was that Helena is getting more and more control of her powers in the like dream walking and the interpreting her like visions with more accuracy. So I don't think we're going to see her do the Ophelia sort of broken. I think we're going to see Helena's strength to strength to strength.
Yes.
But
agreed.
How that leads to her going out a window, I don't know.
Yeah. That's why I do fear that like the murder outcome is more likely. Maybe it's somebody who fears her power or wants to silence her or something. So,
but I think that idea of like Helena saying to Alicent, "Where would I go?" Because she knows from her future visions that she never leaves. Like she doesn't go anywhere. She knows she's going to die. And then also like perhaps in her, we've gone back and forth on this line. Like it doesn't matter. Like if Aemon is talking about her death, it doesn't matter. Maybe it's because like I've seen my death. It's soon. I've seen it. I'm going out the window pretty soon anyway. So it doesn't really matter. You kill me.
I think you looked at your watch.
TikTok.
Let's talk about another sibling.
Clock. Okay, what?
Let's talk about another sibling. Darren. Tessarion. I chuckled. I got a kick out of Rhaenyra saying to Corals, the third brother is untested, has never left Old Town, and his dragon is younger than Vermax. It made me think of the Twitter account Old Takes Exposed, who's like always tweeting like, this is a football take you got wrong on a Ringer pod like 14 years ago.
Does this happen to you? Do you get tweeted on that?
It happens to everybody. I did have one. I did have one. Yeah, it was about Josh Allen. But a lot of people were wrong about that.
And by not to me, I'm not because I'm wrong, just because like I feel like you
start tweeting
like,
about the NFL.
You are of more a notoriety in that space.
Put your Brock Purdy takes on Twitter.
Okay. On it.
And see what happens.
Definitely.
But yeah, like this is just obviously not gonna prove to be true about Darren. And so I enjoy that because I think like we talk a lot about characters underestimating Rhaenyra. And so for Rhaenyra to make that same mistake is dramatically compelling to me.
Nettles.
Yeah. What do you want to say about this and where we are with this?
I just think could not be clearer that they're going to do the Rhaena for Nettles swap.
Yep.
I think the theory that we read a couple weeks ago that I got off of Reddit that the reason that Rhaenyra winds up fixating on and resenting the Nettles character so much is if Rhaena is in that role is because Rhaena abandoned her post in charge of those two blonde toddlers, and when everything goes down south at the Gullet, Rhaena is going to get the blame. Daemon being protective of her, not as like a side piece, but as his daughter, who he neglected, who is a dragon rider now. We got the ghost of his dead wife saying, "What about our daughters?"
He checked in on our kids.
What do you think? I do like this theory that's going around. I think we got an email about it, but I've seen it elsewhere. This idea that like, what if Damon, to protect Rhaena or something like that, like that Nettles is like a thing that they come up with to hide Rhaena from Rhaenyra. I think that's a good theory too.
Yeah. So I was wondering, that was on my mind with, I thought Condell's phrasing in his answer at the panel you guys did to this was like, felt so deliberate in a way that, I mean, obviously like he's being thoughtful about everything, but makes that possibility that you just floated really feel in play. Like, we're providing the television version of one objective truth of this history, and anybody who reads the books is free to interpret it however they want. But there are a lot of paths to interpretation through this, and I think that the Rhaena story, as we're seeing it unfold, is potentially one of those interesting interpretations that we have to offer. And I would just say that we don't do any of this stuff lightly. So that's certainly about a number of aspects of this, but that like last part, potentially one of those interesting interpretations, it did make me think like, oh, could this, a cover story and identity swap. Now, I think for the people who love Nettles, this is like really going to be a complicated thing and not something that everybody's happy about. Shout out our guy David Jacoby, who is but like Roman Roy, pre-grieving. I'm very upset about this, even though it has not yet officially happened. And I think that the daughter, the learning eventually that Damon and Nettles, if Nettles had been in the show, was actually still more of a father-daughter thing rather than like the romantic rumor mongering. Like I've always, the prince doted upon the brown girl as a man might dote upon his daughter. Like I think that daughter possibility has always been there, and so making it his literal daughter, that feels in bounds. I think, as we've talked about in recent weeks, like losing that. And you don't have to be a Targaryen, though. As we talked about, who knows? Nettles could have been a seed or had some blood of old Valyria that we just did not know about. But obviously that, like, you just work your way up and build that trust with Sheepy. One sheep hunk of mutton at a time. And you don't necessarily, and like what that, the fuel to the fire of like, do you need to be a Targ? Really gonna miss all of that. So yeah, I'm so interested to see how this goes. I guess if it happens, R.I.P. to Morning. Morning will never hatch. Sad.
I love the design on Sheepy so much. Big Sheepy fan.
Can't wait to spend more time with Sheepy.
Oh,
though I'm haunted by your suggestion that we might just have like all of season 3 be them like getting to know each other before an actual pairing.
I was holding this back because we were hoping sort of maybe to get a chat with our pal Paula Fairfield, which just doesn't think that like it's happening at least anytime soon. So I thought that I would share this thing that I already shared with you, but she told me, she said Ryan wanted a clear difference between the rider endowed dragons, frolicking moon dancer and Vermax in the next scene, and the wilds. I made the decision that the wilds have no song. Depending on what they've done with Rhaena and Sheepstealer, maybe she'll get her song one day. So like this idea that Sheepstealer has no song is just this sort of like scratchy voiced like wild dragon that doesn't hoot the way that like the other dragons do, but that maybe if Rhaena claims Sheepstealer, which we just feel like is definitely going to happen, but Paula is not confirming one way or another, then like maybe Sheepstealer will get a song.
I hope so.
Absolutely
Sheepy
beautiful.
deserves a song. Paula's
a genius. All right, the betrayals, the seeds.
We talked about this with Ulf and Hugh already earlier. I guess we've kind of hit like that part of it.
The Adam stuff is devastating. Genuinely devastating to me. I care about him so much. I care about him so much. He's going to get lumped in with Hugh and Ulf, who will betray Rhaenyra. Though I have questions about Hugh, but let's save it for another season. So he's going to get lumped in with them. And then he has to like prove himself, and improving himself by like coming back and fighting the betrayers. He dies, and that's so sad. But before he dies, he is one of very few characters ever to go to the Isle of Faces. So my question to you is, are we actually going to get to see the Isle of Faces with Adam, our sweet, seedy, loyal boy? And my follow-up question is, if they're going to do that, why did they not have, I already said this, but like, why did they not have one shot of him at Harrenhal being like, what's all this then? You know what I mean? One little like Adam's on the ground.
Oh man.
And
Maybe
he
later
hears-
he'll be like, I was up there circling for a while and I have a follow-up
I
question.
heard
What was all
a
that then?
voice. What's all that? What's all this then? Can I go to that island?
I hope we get this. I mean, it would be, I'm looking forward to
Ugh.
all of our time with Adam, but obviously it would be incredible to go to the
Isle of Faces?
Though I
Oh
feel
my
like,
God.
I do feel like we will go there one way or another because we'll go with Damon, who's really alive. Right?
Right. And becomes the three-eyed raven before Brendan gets there.
Oh man.
Fun theory.
Love it. Great stuff. Alfred Broom.
What do I say about that piece of shit?
I mean, again, this is where like they're not really hiding the ball because like on the one hand, the werewood whispering traitor to him, it could just be about the fact that he is there to kind of convince Damon to make a play at Rhaenyra's expense. That's an act of treachery. But obviously the great treachery awaits. I just am like, they're really going out of their way to have him say many times over the course of this season, some version of what he says in the finale. I will never serve the usurpers or the whelps of Old Town. So while I don't particularly care for our time with Sir Alfred Broom or want more of it, especially if we only have 16 fucking episodes left, I'm interested to see, like, we saw him obviously recede into the crowd as everybody bends the knee and chants for Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
But so, like, how is he going to reconcile his fear inside of Team Black with his seeming genuine aversion to Team Green? I'm kind of curious to see how that goes. Alan. Guess we should have gone from Adam to Alan, but we were in the betrayals section. So, Alan.
Alan firmly in the I don't want it model, but we know that eventually he takes over Lord of the Tides, that title from Corlys.
Yes.
How do we think that's going to happen?
I'm kind of curious because for like the middle stretch of season 2, we assumed that this would kind of happen, or at least we would make more progress toward this in season 2, and obviously it didn't. So now I'm wondering if there's like a real timeline change coming, and that maybe, like, I wonder if Alan's embrace of that. I mean, I think ultimately it's going to feel most satisfying if it's a thing he decides he wants, but basically, like, if he does it for Adam, not for Corlys, and not even necessarily for himself, like, that's interesting to me because Adam has been the one who's like,
bro, we've got to do this.
Yeah. So curious to see how that goes and when that kind of change unfolds.
You already mentioned this idea that Alicent might be in a bit of trouble if Rhaenyra shows up to King's Landing and Aegon is Larys absconded with Aegon in a box. Yeah. So like, what are you going to do about that? Tensions, I mean, they're going to be coexisting the same. We're just going to be thriving with Emma and Olivia scenes for a little while, and that's very exciting for all of us. We did this email from Sarah. I don't need to read the whole thing, but I did think it was interesting that, like, Sarah pointed out that we were missing the moment in Blood and Cheese in the adaptation that Helena, like, really chooses which of her kids dies. Yeah. And we got a version of that with Alicent in the finale, that Alicent basically chooses Helena over Aegon.
Yeah.
In a sort of like Blood and Cheese-esque moment. I think that was like a really smart observation. Not that it tells us anything about what's going to happen to Alicent, but
it's a great, that is a great observation though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say about Otto Hightower? I think we've run out of ideas here. We'll see. In 2 years.
Here's the real question. How horny will season 3 be?
We need more sex in the show. I don't mean to be so painfully predictable, but there's not enough sex in the show.
Zoe writes, in the books, when Daemon and Rhaenyra get back together for the Harrenhal, after the Harrenhal estrangement, it seems common public knowledge that Daemon eventually hooks back up with Mysaria with Rhaenyra's blessing. Recall Rhaenyra apparently just eats tasty treats and gets, quote, thicker or something like that. Sounds fabulous. Honestly, get it how you live, girl. Anyway, with the show's twist on Rhaenyra and Mysaria's relationship, are we about to get a Daemon, Rhaenyra, Mysaria throuple? I just can't see why not. We've already said that Hot D needs more zesty scenes. Plus, HBO could show Netflix how to do a threesome scene properly, because Colin Bridgerton sequences were not it. And I gotta agree. The Colin Bridgerton threesome stuff, beginning of this season of Bridgerton, were not it. I agree. So here's the question. Are we going to get Daemon, Rhaenyra, and Mysaria throuple? Love to see it. Love to hear it. Love to know about it. Thailand and Lohar, or Thailand and Lohar's many wives, or all of that sort of stuff. Is that happening?
Yeah.
Alice and Aemond. What's going to happen there?
Mm-hmm.
Bela and Alan. Too soon? Question mark. Who's to say?
That feels later to me. But
season
who knows?
4. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think? How zesty? I love Zoe's word, zesty. How zesty and or horny is season 3 going to be? It's a war.
Yeah,
But war
I think
can make people horny.
absolutely.
You
Yeah,
know?
you want to feel alive before you die. And
Yeah.
also, like, you know, you made some great points heading into season 2 when we were talking about like the new cast members, Tom Bennett, Freddie Fox, etc., about how important it was to introduce some levity
Humor,
and like
yeah,
tonal variance into the season. And like, you know, when we talk about a vibrant, rich, varied tapestry, let's get this in as well. It can't only be, and yes, when I like say, like, it can't just be war. I mean, again, we've talked about it already. We're going to talk about it more in a minute. A lot of battles await. We're going to need some palate cleansers between all the fighting. We're going to need some fucking. I have some questions about maybe how the Alice Aemond stuff is actually going to go.
Yeah.
But I look forward to finding out. I would be happy for Jace if he experienced the carnal arts before tragically perishing in the gullet. I think there are all sorts of opportunities, and the Daemon, Rhaenyra, Mysaria throuple thing is a great call. You know, like the way that it's presented to us in the book a couple times is like with the Queen's blessing.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's one of those examples of how like blessing, not only because Rhaenyra had her own stuff going on, but because Rhaenyra was participating.
She was
Why
part
not?
of it.
Yeah.
It's all happening around her.
Yeah, I like it.
All right.
Okay, so let's just do some quick timeline predictions here. We both like put down our little lists, and they're like basically identical in terms of when we think things are going to happen.
Yep.
Fish feed. Whether they do Red Fork as like a preamble into Fish Feed or just make it all one thing. Episode 1, like
Maybe.
this actually feels like maybe the more likely opening act than Gullet, because it just allows Jace to stay in the story one episode longer, right? And also because like the ships do have to kind of all sail toward each other, whereas like I know they said on the morrow, but like I don't know, like everyone's. I mean, I guess the Winter Wolves, it takes some time to get from the twins still, but like the Lannisters are fucking looking across the Trident at Harrenhal. Like that should happen soon. That really should happen soon.
But I think we were trying to figure this out on Trial by Content.
Yeah.
The breakup I have between, so I bullet points, you have bullet points.
Yes.
Almost, not all, but almost all of my bullet points I feel like have to happen.
Yeah.
But I think they have to do some condensing or combining of
Mhm.
sequences, because for the season 3 bullet points I have, you and I both agree that we think season 3 is going to end with the first Templeton betrayal.
Yes.
That's where we think season 3 ends.
Yes.
Hugh and Ulf turn on Team Black.
Yes.
Devastation.
Huge blow. Yes.
Huge blow for Team Black. So
Tough one.
given that, I have 7 bullet points in season 3 for 8 episodes. That's insane. So like for something like the Fish Feed Red Fork.
Yeah.
Where like Jason Lannister's gonna die. Gawain Hightower is gonna die, perhaps. Is this something where we can do all of those people dying at the Red Fork cut together with Daemon and Rhaenyra take King's Landing and Aemon arrives at Harrenhal? Like the fall of King's Landing and the Fish Feed happening at once. So we see Daemon put all those people there and then fucked off and left them.
Mhm.
And so the taking of King's Landing and the rather bloodless taking of King's Landing and the
All in a day.
bloody no dragons involved battle happening in the Riverlands at the same time feels like it could be elided, you know?
Yeah, I'm still curious to see if they end up like accelerating the Kristen Gawain path and incorporating them, because we talked a lot during the season when we thought we were going to get Fish Feed in season 2. Like we need characters we know to be participating in that, because like Fish Feed is like sending ravens to Aemon, like please come help us, but none of the ravens ever make
and
it
nobody
to
we
Aemon
care
and
about
Kristen.
is there.
Yeah. So I think like for that reason, it seemed like either we had to get characters who we know and are more invested in to participate in that, or that could be a candidate for a battle because we don't know many of the main participants that happens off screen. but I'm now less inclined to think it could happen off screen because of the way season 2 ended and the uproar around it. Like, I think starting season 1, I mean, Gullet could definitely be episode 1, but I think starting at season 3, episode 1 with like
Fish feed
happened off screen. I don't know how that's
I mean, they
go
can't.
over?
I don't think they can Bernie Mill fish feed, but they don't have to show us like a ton of it. They do have to show a lion attacking Jason Lannister and then Longleaf killing maybe both the lion and Jason.
Interesting. Yeah.
If they don't do Butcher's Ball and Kristen and Gawain both die at the fish feed, like that's a thing that could happen.
I feel like they're going to keep Kristen around longer, and we're going to have this like attrition and slow march toward just complete defeat.
I'm tempted to agree. I just think that Butcher, of all the things that could be folded into something else, Butcher's Ball is like the one thing. But then again, it's not as massive of a spectacle.
That's the thing. Yeah, I don't think that has to be like a huge set piece. I think it's just like, this march as you're losing men, like this Aemon, Kristen parting, which they've obviously already set up spectacularly, and then like, okay, you've got these like, little pantomimes of your horrors and waiting for you in the woods and like burned passions, this and every minute, just another thing, another horror befalls you, and you're like, what is the point? What is the path forward? And then he just needs to run into like a group of people.
He's just already so ready to die to like,
I know,
stringing along. Okay, so it's Gullet. The question
Gullet in the second episode.
So you think fish feed the first episode and Gullet in the second episode is what you think?
I do like King's Landing happening in tandem with a battle, though. I like that idea. And I think, in the book, the sequencing, like the kind of response that Rhaenyra has to Jace's death, like we're just in a totally different place with Rhaenyra as a character, right? So King's Landing could happen before then. I don't know that King's Landing and I kind of am intrigued thematically, like story-wise, by the idea of King's Landing and Gullet happening in tandem, and Rhaenyra's like, I won, and then it's like, fuck, my heir was just killed. Yeah. But the dragon, so many of the dragons being in a different place and being like, this is the moment to go to King's Landing, that just would be odd. So the sequencing would have to unfold in a way where like Rhaenyra and Daemon felt confident enough that they didn't need everyone else to go with them, and then they were all available when like, or the baby flies in on Storm.
Well, there's also Moondancer, who's not a factor in the book. But like the seeds go with Rhaenyra to King's Landing.
Yeah.
And then come join the Gullet.
Yeah.
But Jace is already there and like too late for Jace. Or
I can see that. Like yeah. And I do think like just given the Alicent like come in 3 days timeline, like King's Landing just shouldn't take very long to happen for a number of different reasons. So that going with that happening in concert with fish feed is interesting to me. I like that as a
it feels opener. Like to me there's like 3 really big things, and it's like fish feed, Gullet, King's Landing.
Yep.
So like Gullet, then fish feed, King's Landing together, sort of like mid-season, like in the Rook's Rest spot, and then ending with the first Battle of Tumbleton. In there, you've got the potential of like, let's check in with what the Red Kraken is doing and stuff like that. But again, those are smaller potential set pieces.
What do you think about Honeywine? Do you think that Honeywine will happen off screen and just be something we hear about, or will that be our formal introduction to Ormond Hightower and to Darren and Tessarion? Obviously, we saw Tessarion fly over those troops.
It's almost too bad that we got a shot of him. I say that even as we were like, where's Darren? Where's Darren? Because like Darren on his dragon showing up is like the big Deus Ex Machina of the Battle of Honeywine, is such a dramatic thing they could have done, So I don't know.
So many Darren mentions this season. Wild times.
Season 4.
Yeah.
Battle above the God's Eye.
Yes. Beginning of the season. I think Rhaenyra takes King's Landing in episode 1 of season 3. That feels like the final shot of the premiere. And then
but it's Gullet on the morrow. King's Landing in 3 days.
But they don't mean they're going to reach the Gullet on the morrow. They mean they're setting out on the morrow to head toward the Gullet. It takes a little time to sail there.
I think we've been thinking they were going to flip-flop King's Landing and Gullet for a long time. Yep. But that had more to do, I think, with like us trying to figure out like budgetarily what they had what they were going to do.
Yeah.
Now that it's all in one season, I see no reason to flip-flop it.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree. And then so if Rhaenyra takes the throne in the middle of season 3, and then Tumbleton's the end,
episode 3 or 4.
And so you have like a real like low early in the season of losing Jace, the high of taking the throne, and then the low of
Tumbleton.
of Tumbleton and the
Betrayal.
betrayals. And then we head into season 4, God's Eye, first episode, second episode.
Second, to keep Matt
Second.
Smith here as long as they can, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So God's Eye, Fall of Dragonstone,
Yes. Storming of the Pit,
Storming of the Dragon Pit,
Second
Tumbleton,
Bloodbath. Yeah.
Sunfire burns Rhaenyra.
Yes. Rhaenyra's death, Aegon's death, and then whatever the final moment is. Allison.
If it were
Aegon the
me,
third, maybe. That's a lot.
I would burn Rhaenyra at the beginning of episode 7
Mhm.
and actually kill Aegon before that episode is over.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
the last one is the aftermath.
They have a lot to do and not a lot of time. And like, just the way the show has been paced to this point.
I mean, this is insane.
They like those
Everything we just
quiet moments.
mentioned is like insane. It's insane for them to try to do all of this. And again, like if
Yeah.
we're talking about like budgetary concerns, like there's so many dragon battles. So like,
Yeah.
I
mean, we didn't even mention something like the King's Road battle at the end, which I guess they would just be like, eh.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of stuff. And like, can't only be battles. Like that's not the balance of the show.
right. And that's why I think trying to keep, if it's an 8-episode season, I think trying to keep it to like 3 big things
Yeah.
per season.
They need 10 episodes per season.
Because
They
season
do.
4, Battle of God's Eye, Fall of Dragonstone, Storming the Dragon Pit, Second Tumbleton, Sunfire Burns Rhaenyra, like you can't skip any of those things.
No.
And none of those things should happen off screen. Like the Storming the
So
Dragon
many
Pit.
Crucial deaths.
Yeah. So many people are going to die. So many dragons are going to die. You know.
Well, I can't wait.
It is going to be great.
I
I
have
did
some
tease
concerns
this
about the
Kristen
time
Cole
left,
thing,
but-
so I'll
Yeah.
just say,
Make the case.
Derek, Freddie did mention your favorite line about "I'll have no songs about how brave you died." Our listener Freddie did mention that,
The best.
and this idea of like, this is such a different Kristen Cole than Kristen Cole in the book at this point. So it's like how he's going to interact with Fish Feed and Butcher's Ball and all of that sort of stuff is really interesting. Okay, but Derek writes on the popular Kristen Cole is the shepherd theory. I've seen this all over the place. Very interesting. Derek writes, he can still be shot by Rob Rivers archers at the Butcher's Ball to keep that part of canon intact, but could easily lose a hand there too, make his way back to King's Landing, ragged but renewed, filled with anger at the dragons and their lords. Kristen's field commander experience and his familiarity with the city from his time on the King's Guard would help explain how the shepherd controls his mob enough to storm the dragon pit. Inside knowledge, hello. Plus, the legends recounted in Fire and Blood say that the shepherd himself, acting as an avatar of the warrior, struck down Cyrax, Rhaenyra's dragon. This would be a fitting end to Kristen's longtime grudge against her, and also would make his eventual condemnation by Aegon that much more personal. Also, for what it's worth, this Dune spoilers. Children of Dune spoilers. Children of Dune spoilers. This is the preacher arc in Children of Dune. It would work best if, like in Children of Dune, the other major characters don't know or even suspect that Kristen is the shepherd, except perhaps for Aegon II, when he eventually executes him just before he is poisoned. What if we gave
Fascinated.
Fabian?
I'm coming down on a no
No.
here.
What if we gave Fabian like a huge ragged beard and like a great big bushy beard and like long
I mean,
hair?
That sounds great.
Scraggle
Yeah.
him up.
I don't see this just because I don't think that's. I've now become convinced that that's not the arc that we're on with Kristen, but I do think this is fascinating and fun.
What do you think the arc? Well, I like this idea of conservation of characters. The shepherd is someone we've already met.
That is compelling to me, especially because the question of who he is and his identity is such a thing already. I don't know that I'm prepared to offer up another great candidate. I don't know. I guess like we talked around the finale of like, are we watching like a true quote unquote redemption arc for Kristen? And I don't know that we are.
No.
But I also don't know that we're watching a like, I need to hold on to my resentment and quest for vengeance at all costs arc. And like, I think that
You're just gonna leave him in nihilism nook.
Nihilism Nook.
Yeah.
The state of complete defeat and like,
Yeah.
what is my place in the world?
Mhm.
It feels like the area we're going to play in, at least for a little while. I kind of, again, like there's just so little time left now that I'm like, God, do we even have enough room to like get Kristen to go back to King's Landing, become the shepherd, lead the flock, spark the riot, spark the storming of the pit, find out then that the people are not actually just going to show up to align with you.
Yeah. He also doesn't strike me as a thought leader, but
yeah. Well, we did see that rousing speech to get everybody to charge into Dragon War. The thing I do find compelling is like the way we've talked a lot about his like kind of cloak of righteousness and the use of this like religious justification for his acts. That's interesting to me. But I think I am like, everybody has their like, what do I really not want them to change thing? Like Riley wrote a thing on the site that was basically like, if Daemon Targaryen does not jump off of Caraxes onto Vhagar and charge toward Aemon, Dark Sister in hand, as Aemon is like fumbling with his saddle and can't get out in time, like I will basically like swear off this franchise. I'm not going to say that my feeling about the Butcher's Ball is quite like that, but I just, Kristen's death, it feels perfect to me.
It is interesting to me because Aemon doesn't use seatbelts that we've seen so far. Rhaenys does. Aemon doesn't really strap himself in. Maybe his foot gets caught in the netting. There's all that, like all the ropes.
There is just quite a bit of like ropey lattice work there on the side.
Agree. Yeah, I agree with Riley on that. Okay. Do we do it?
Else? I think so. Anything else? Anything else that's on your mind from season 2 or heading into season 3? I mean, I can't wait to do this again with you in 2 years.
See you again in 2 years, but also see you next year for Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
I can't wait.
I'm so excited for that.
Can't wait.
Genuinely, those books are so good. If you, again, just going to advocate reading those novellas. They're quick. They're fun.
Zippy.
Harry Lloyd does the audiobook. Check it out.
Wonderful. Can't wait to be with my guy, Baylor Breakspear. Love him. All right, we did it. What a treat. What a thrill. What a season. Always love to cover Thrones with you. Delightful. All right, that's it. The pod makers, they're calling us. We did, in fact, make some pods, many of them, and they were quite long. So thank you for listening to them. That is a wrap on today's episode and on our season 2 Hot D chats. Thank you to our Dragon Riders, Steve Ahlman and John Richter, for producing these just, frankly, astonishingly long podcasts all season long. Thank you to Arjuna Ramgopal for his additional production work on this and every episode. And thank you to Jomi Adeniran for his work on the social for this and every episode. We will see you next week for the fall. And what does fall mean? You'll find out on that podcast when we decide what dates apply. Fall Hype Meter. Until then, remember, the pod is an enduring mystery. Is it not?